No, we have been always very
persuasive
lucky.
ability.
We have been always lucky that, such good people associate with us. So we get the benefit of that. So, Dolly, shall we start? I think we have enough people.
Yeah, sir, sure. So, I have asked Anuja to put the Facebook Live
Yeah,
link
it
in the
is
chat
already
box.
on.
Yeah. So, if anybody wants to watch the webinar, they can watch there also. Okay. So,
Yeah.
shall we begin, sir?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. I am Dolly Soni. I am the Marketing and Projects Manager at PFNDI. It gives me immense pleasure to extend to you a very warm welcome on behalf of PFNDI and Amway for joining us today at the webinar on Nutraceuticals and Dietary Supplements Research and Development. We will be having with us today Dr. Jagdish Pai, Dr. Rama Vaidya, Dr. Sudarshan Rao, Dr. Vidya Sridhar, Mr. Vikram, Mr. Vivek Parashar, Mr. Vijendra Kumar, Dr. Shashikaran, Mr. Ajay Khanna, Mr. Arjun Dasundi, Ms. Amrut Patel, Dr. Subhadra Mandalika, and Ms. Preeti Yadav. It is a pleasure to have all of you on this virtual dais today, and I am sure that we will have a series of informative and interesting talk today. So stay tuned with us. I now request Dr. Pai to deliver a welcome address.
Thank you, Dolly. This probably is one of the biggest attendance in our webinars, and all the credit is due to our eminent speakers and panelists. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation to join us and give your thoughts about the nutraceuticals and the dietary supplements. And we are going to discuss mostly the research and development in this arena. As I said earlier, Dr. Sashikaran, who is going to moderate the panel discussion, will be joining us shortly. So we will definitely get the benefit of his experience also. And I'm not going to take too much of your time because I'm sure you're all waiting to hear these fantastic presentations from all these speakers. So let me first thank Amway for making this particular thing a reality by sponsoring this webinar. And we are very thankful to them. And I also want to thank all the participants who have joined in such a large number. There was a panel poster competition that was organized by Amway and PFNDI, and we got excellent response for that. There will be later on the prize announcement for winners of this competition. So I'm sure you're all eagerly awaiting the proceedings of this. So thank you all and welcome, and hope you all enjoy this the proceedings of this particular webinar. Good day. Dolly?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for the welcome address. Before we start with the presentation, this is a kind request to all to please put your questions in the question and answer tab only with the name of the speaker to whom you are addressing the question. Please refrain from putting the questions in the chat box. The question and answers will be taken up after the presentation of each speaker. The feedback form for today's webinar will be put in the chat box after the presentation and also be shared on your email ID. You will receive your e-certificates only upon filling the feedback form. Also, the winners of the poster contest will be announced towards the end of the session. So the first talk of today's session is a joint presentation by Dr. Ashok Vaidya and Dr. Rama Vaidya on the topic Nutraceuticals, Potential for R&D in Global Healthcare. I would like to take a few minutes to introduce the speaker to you all. I hope my screen is visible. Dr. Ashok Vaidya is a Professor Emeritus, Kasturba Health Society Medical Research Center, Director of Clinical Pharmacology, BSCS Hospital and Global Research Center. Former positions include Regional Medical Director, Board Member Zandu, Research Director, etc. Expert member of WHO, CCRAS, ICMR, CSIR, ICAR, etc. Research contributions, MD dissertation on Brigu Samhita, salt and amla pitta, reverse pharmacology of Ayurvedic formulations and medical plants, etc. He has more than 300 publications of papers, many reviews, chapters, and editorials. Awards and honors include Dhanvantari Award, Nutra India, Lifetime Achievement Awards from Indian Pharmacology, etc. Dr. Rama Vaidya, she is currently working as Director, Division of Endocrine and Metabolic Disorders, Medical Research Center, Kasturba Health Society. She is MD in Obstetric Gynecology from Seth GS Medical College, Mumbai. Pursued her PhD in Applied Biology with a focus on clinical pharmacology on the topic study of the effect of neuroendocrine active agents on reproductive endocrine disorders. She is a Ford Foundation Fellow at Yale University School of Medicine, worked with Professor John McLean Morris, the discoverer of testicular feminization syndrome and morning after pill. She joined the Institute for Research and Reproduction as a senior research officer and started the Department of Clinical Endocrinology and Infertility. She successfully spearheaded projects like Maitri for postmenopausal women and Shield for the enlightenment for school children. Over to you, ma'am.
So am I heard properly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. At the outset, would like to thank Dr. Pai and his colleagues, Ms. Dolly, Ms. Prerna, and Ms. Anuja. And from MWay, Dr. Durai Raj and Dr. Swati Shukla. This presentation is prepared collectively by Dr. Shuk Vaidya, myself, and Dr. Shubha Udupi, who is currently Research Director at Kasturba Health Society Medical Research Center. And in the next slide, would like to show that really Kasturba Health Society Medical Research Center, and this slide was made some years back. It's an integrated vision and endeavor for biomedical research where ancient insights and modern discoveries principle guide us. And you can see in this faculty with the president of Kasturba Society, Dhirubhai Mehta, sitting there, Dr. Vaidya. And we have 4 very senior Ayurvedic consultants and researchers, which we call them as Vaidya scientists, Dr. Ashwini Kumar Raut, Dr. Nutan Nabar, Dr. Ashish Phadke, and Dr. Kalpana Durisha. And from the modern medical side, we have Dr. Deepak Dave, Dr. Jayashree Joshi, Dr. Vaidya, and myself. And now recently we have a dermatologist, a very senior dermatologist, Dr. Gulrez. From the biomedical stream, we have Dr. Amonkar and Dr. Prajakta. Dr. Chaya Godse is already left to and gone to the industry, Subhada and others. And very not so recently, we have worked together for years together. That's nutrition scientists of great repute, Dr. Shubha Udupi and her colleagues. With this, the next slide would show you that today I would like to cover some of the points in greater details and some I'll just touch upon. We'll talk about the genesis, definition, scope of Nutraceuticals. And true, the Bharat is a rich heritage of Ayurveda health wisdom. And there's a spectrum of pleiotropic activity that arises from Ahar to Aushad in R&D paths. And I'm so glad that Dr. Pai this afternoon, emphasized that research is equally important besides research and development in this field, is this domain. Seasonal health foods and value as Nutraceuticals, dietary individualization during illness and convalescence, Nutraceuticals, health promotion, preventive and therapeutic, and global impact of unique Nutraceuticals on R&D. Next slide, please. So genesis of Nutraceuticals, probably all of you know, but it was nice for me to read little more in details, that Stephen D. Fallis in 1976 created a non-profit organization established in that time to accelerate medical discovery by establishing a more productive clinical research community. And I would like to emphasize for all of you, it is so important to emphasize clinical research community participation. He coined the word nutraceutic in 1989. The next slide shows that nutraceuticals were announced as a entity synergizing with nutraceutical for the wellness of society at a function, Lifetime Achievement Award, given to Dr. Shukwedia at the 5th Nutraceutical Summit 2009, New Delhi. Next slide, please. So this somewhere I would say is my comfort zone, the comfort zone that comes through those who have been nurtured in that era in which at home remedies were prevalent and which were arising from the community awareness that was given by Vaidyas and Ayurveda. And there was a time when I wanted to work on puberty menorrhagia. I was approached by Anand Puranik ji from Rutupapeshwar that would you like to work on our product for its anti-menorrhagic property and efficacy. And we thought that we can get best to reach to a cohort for the puberty menorrhagia only if we go to schools. And we did, and we think that it's very important that whenever we reach out to community for our purpose, we should see what we can give in back to that community. And we had thought that school health education and enlightened living program, where there were Saptashil program, and it had health education covering 7 topics. And I will not go into the detail of those, but at that time, we helped the students to set up a exhibition on Saturday and Sunday where they had displayed their various aspects of this Saptashil program. One of that was on nutrition and kitchen gardening. And at that time, on the final day of the event, I was asked to give an address, and it just occurred to me, and I spoke out. Cooking is an art. Don't ask me whether I have that art or not. Diet is a culture, and nutrition is a science. How rich we are in our diets through our thali. Sumati Budambi, I don't know whether anyone of you remember her, but from SNDT had written about the eulogy about thali as a optimum nutrition from day-to-day basis, from morning to night, whatever we eat. How much was there wisdom in that thali? In 70s in the United States, when I was there, I was exposed to this food pyramid, which was an old food pyramid, and now new food pyramid has come. But I think they have learned about the thali concept, and that's why you see this as a plate where the proportions are given to the macro and micronutrients. Now, new food pyramid has included physical activity. We always knew Shatpavli Karnache Faide Aplala Maid Ahes. Next slide, please. So, defining nutraceuticals, they're really industry business, which combine pharmaceutical dosage forms to the nutritional supplements with health claims. But Ayurvedics that are Ayush-based, that is Ayurvedic, Unani and Siddha-based, culture-specific food supplements, which have quality, safety, and activity for the defined indications. And the next slide, please. So it is a subset of the universe of food supplements where it is governed by the regulatory FSSAI, and that the products with documented quality, safety, and efficacy based on the principles and practice of Ayurveda, Unani, and Siddha, with very important, consensual and congruent validity of Nutraceuticals. The scope of R&D in nutraceuticals is immense in view of the vast therapeutic clinical usage of Ayurvedic drugs in India. However, presently, as the local and global markets are humongous, still the current focus is more on a rapid product development than basic R&D. And I'm very glad again, and I'm repeating that Dr. Pai did tell us today that there should be a focus on research. The unmet global needs of healthcare are health of pregnant women, health of elderly, metabolic and degenerative diseases, health development of children, and complementary therapy in cancer, allergy, stress, viral disease, and immune disorders. Today, we'll be focusing to some extent on health of pregnant women and metabolic and degenerative diseases and cancer. The next slide, please. So here we find that the Global Knowledge Society Integral Knowledge for Development was nicely spoken by Dr. Abdul Kalam in Ignited Minds says, knowledge has always been a prime mover of prosperity and power. In the 21st century, a new society is emerging where knowledge is primary production resource instead of capital and labor. Efficient utilization of this existing knowledge base can create wealth for us in the form of better health, education, and other indicators of progress. Whether a nation qualifies as a knowledge society is judged by how effectively it deals with knowledge creation and knowledge development. And it is really nice. I have read about Professor Oppenheimer, father of atomic bomb, how much he writes in eulogy about the Vedas and Gita. Access to the Vedas is the greatest privilege this century may claim over all previous centuries. The next slide, please. So in Charak, Bhagavad, and other classics of Ayurveda, who is an expert on drugs? Only a few understand medicines thoroughly. One who knows their identity, characteristics, and combinations of usage is called an expert on drugs. And what is an appropriate drug? One that has a potential for multiple formulations and usage with multiple good properties and potency is called appropriate drug. Wherein the beneficial and adverse influences leading to a healthy or a diseased life and their respective modalities, helpful or harmful, are described and measured. That is called Ayurveda. Next slide, please. So there is a spectrum of Ahar to Avshada. And in these 4 columns, you see how Ahar moves towards Avshada. The same Amlaki fruit, which is Ahar, Ahar Aushad Amlaki Swaras, Aushad Ahar Chavanpras, and Aushad is Amlaki Rasayan. Ginger as spice, Alepak, and there I would say that these are some of the seasonal foods of medicinal value. Then from Ahar Aushad to Aushad Ahar, Sunti, and then Nagardi Kwat as Aushad. Haridra, a spice in our daily cooking. Haridra with milk as a Ahar Aushad. Aushad Ahar as pickled Haridra, and Nisha Amlaki. At CSR Limitly project that we had worked for Nisha Amlaki in diabetes mellitus and newly detected or still not and pre-diabetic states also. And it was found to have insulin sensitization. Next slide, please. So Ayurvedic indications. Now I'm going to dwell quite a bit on Dadim. What was fascinating to me the other day when we were discussing about something else, that something that we all throw away and the peels, but they are really having so many bioactives in peels of fruits that we throw away. And even in the Dadim as a fruit of medicinal value has been described, and it has been used in Hriday Rog, Gulm, Ash, Grani, and Pandurog. So there are multiple indications of the same fruit. Next slide, please. And an excellent article in 2002 June in Frontiers in Nutrition, where they talk about pomegranate peel as a source of bioactive compounds. It's a mini review on their physiological functions. But look at this. It has polyphenols, which is occupying almost half the pie of this entire diagram, with a dietary fiber and others as the rest. And the indications that are given here is to improve cardiovascular health, anti-tumoral, anti-inflammatory properties, antioxidant properties, antimicrobial, and improves skin health, improves oral health, as we will see in the next few slides. Next slide, please. There are systematic reviews and meta-analysis of the effects of Punica granatorum on a spectrum of non-communicable diseases. India is facing double whammy of infectious diseases at the same time non-communicable diseases. And metabolic syndrome is, if we are considered as diabetic capital of the world, we are not behind in metabolic syndrome either. And so pomegranate and metabolic syndrome risk factors and outcomes, a systematic review in clinical studies. I'll go a little bit in detail later on this. Effect of pomegranate juice on vascular adhesion factors, then its effect in cancer prevention and intervention through its multiple targets on oncogenic and oncosuppressive signals, pharmacological and therapeutic properties of Punica granatorum phytochemicals on possible role in breast cancer. The next slide, please. So let's first find out what is a metabolic syndrome. It is a central obesity where waist circumference for we Indians and females, it is more than 80 centimeters with any two of the following, like triglycerides more than 150 milligram per DL, or the patient may be already under specific treatment for lipid abnormality, HDL cholesterol, which is lower than 50 ml, or is on a treatment, blood pressure on antihypertensive treatment, or has more than 130, or diastolic more than 85, and fasting plasma glucose more than 100 milligram per DL, or previously diagnosed type 2 diabetes, and OGTT to identify GT. WHO actually also includes here insulin. And I do feel, because we have a lot of experience of comparing HbA1c with the HOMA-IR as well with the stimulated 2R insulin. And in a large number of cases, we find that you may not find any other abnormality other than at 2 hours, glucose-stimulated insulin is high. That's a delayed hyperinsulinemia that we talk about. And that is diabetes in situ, much more before a pre-diabetic state is diagnosed by HbA1c. Next slide, please. So in our Maitri data, which was a module for menopausal healthcare, in that you find that a large number had metabolic syndrome, 42.6%, with hypertension in 41%, increased TG, and it is very, very well known also, and you can find here also reflecting that the low HDL is found in almost close to 50%. Known cases of diabetes or newly detected were 15%. Next slide, please. And very important that waist circumference is much more important for as it correlates with BMI. Somebody who's a lean person, say 20 to 23, but may have almost in the range of 90 centimeters as waist circumference. So the central obesity sometimes, the BMI may hide this metabolic dysfunction, which can be revealed by waist circumference, a very important marker of the underlying metabolic dysfunction. Next slide, please. So again, I'm very, very fond of this slide, and I would like to focus a little bit on this, that in search of a germ theory equivalent for chronic disease, because we all know that it is the inflammation that will happen, classic acute infectious response, immune defense, and then there will be a disease resolution and basal homeostasis. This is by microbial pathogen antigens, the germ theory. But what is the theory for the metabolic syndrome or for chronic inflammation? And most of these NCDs are really chronic inflammatory diseases. And here you find that the mechanisms are oxidative stress and insulin resistance. But what are the inorganic anthropogen inducers? These inducers are lifestyle inducers: obesity, adiposity, sleep deprivation, stress, and such are the inorganic anthropogen inducers. And so there's a chronic allostasis. And we had asked the question, is polycystic ovarian syndrome an inflammatory disease? And you see that picture shows so well, classic inflammation is like a raging fire. And chronic inflammatory disease is a meta-inflammation, smoldering fire. In our 90 patients of PCOS, more than 75% had insulin resistance. This inflammation, chronic inflammation, can be easily diagnosed even if you do CBC. Those who have obesity obviously are insulin resistant by and large, and they may have high WBC count, leukocytosis. But in our 6 cases from 30 who had shown leukocytosis, one of them was thin and lean, and we hardly expected her to have leukocytosis. Looked at her insulin levels, they were sky high. Insulin resistance was there. The next slide, let's look at smoldering inflammation is central to chronic diseases. And that is the basis for cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, pulmonary diseases, arthritis, autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases, diabetes, and cancer. And the next slide will show that in our 43 cases of PCOS, we had done healthy controls for 25. And if you see here in the red color is the control, and the rest is PCOS. Insulin of FGFI ratio is seen, or insulin fasting is seen, and FGFI ratio is seen. That profiling shows hyperinsulinemia and insulin resistance. Leptin is high. Adiponectin, which is a cardioprotective, was low, and CRP was high. So there is this, definitely we have markers for chronic inflammation as well as insulin, hyperinsulinemia, and insulin resistant in PCO patients. Next slide. So it was very important for me to see that now this meta-analysis or systematic review of clinical studies, which says that pomegranate has a metabolic syndrome risk factors and outcomes. Let us look at closely what did they come up with. They had screened about 2,458 records, and finally 20 studies, RCTs, were included by the PRISMA, the guidelines for systematic review. Of these 828, PCOs were the maximum, 136, and obese 146, of course. So the biomarkers that they had studied was BMI, total cholesterol, lipids, fasting blood sugar, insulin, HOMA-IR, and in some they had also looked at the CRP, HSCRP, and interleukin-6. The results in PCOS showed that pomegranate intervention improved metabolic, oxidative, hemodynamic, and inflammatory characteristics of the treated women. This study was triple blind and sample size was calculated. However, when I looked at it carefully, the sample size could have been a little better. Studies in vitro and vivo and a few clinical trials, however, it cannot be offered as monotherapy. But I think that further work definitely needs to be done. And this could be in-depth clinical studies through nutra-epidemiological, Ayurvedic pharmaco-epidemiological, and reverse pharmacology. We have such immense possibilities for such. And Dr. Pai, I would again re-emphasize what you said, that we must involve much more integrative work where Ayurvedic physicians and experts, biomedical colleagues, and the modern diabetologists and those who are in like gynecologists and reproductive endocrinologists who are doing work in PCOS, because polycystic ovarian syndrome really is the epidemic right now in India, and it generates the metabolic syndrome it multiplies, because gestational diabetes occurs with big babies and already a high risk for the PCOS if they're females. So pomegranate and metabolic syndrome risk factors and outcomes, a systemic review was an interesting one in Nutrients 2022. Next slide, please. So then its role in breast cancer. Now, some properties in methanol extracts of pomegranate pericarp is an important one because it has an anti-estrogenic activity. Also, it's like aromatase inhibitors. And so it has a place and had been shown in vitro, in vivo studies. Genstin treatment induced cell cycle arrest in breast cancer cell lines with low estrogen receptor alpha to estrogen receptor beta ratio, and also improved mitochondrial functionality. Quercetin decreases the resistance to the existing anti-cancer drug like adriamycin, and there the breast cancer cell lines, specific ones have been used, which were ADR resistant breast cancer cell lines. And there are also polyphenols that inhibit the activity of 17-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase from 30% to 79%. And amongst the allergen-derived compounds, urolithin A, urolithin B, gallic acid, allergic acid, etc., urolithin B exhibited the most significant anti-aromatase activity and inhibited proliferation of the cell lines, which was ER plus MC7. Next slide, please. So anti-cancer mechanism for punica are regarding its anti-estrogenic effects, fermented pomegranate juice, and had inhibited in several breast cancer cell lines. Also inhibited the estrogenic activity of 17-beta estradiol by 55%. Also, it has inhibited the invasion process and induced apoptosis in other metastatic human breast cancer cell lines. Pomegranate emulsion induced anti-proliferative and pro-apoptotic effects in tumor cell cultures. Next slide, please. So R&D paths from Ayurveda is Ayurvedic nutraceutics can take towards the reverse nutraceutics experience. Observational therapies, observation studies are extremely important. If you keep good records, and here I would emphasize that more epidemiological studies need to be done, because these are being used day in and day out, and in what form, and Ayurvedic pharmacoepidemiology particularly. This, as a person from modern medical science, I was very impressed that pharmacovigilance is not as much required by us, more pharmacoepidemiological for safety, for activity is required rather than vigilance. Because thalidomide tragedy is not occurring day in and day out in our country. And not many drugs by its introduction into the market are not withdrawn within 6 months after its introduction, in spite of the several clinical pharmacological studies and also up to the phase 3 clinical pharmacological studies. So if we say that if there is a perception for safety, we should document that. And that could come through pharmacoepidemiological studies of Ayurveda, also neuroepidemiology. Next slide, please. So reverse nutraceutics, Aushad, phytopharmaceutics, and Nutraceuticals. I think in our country, if I'm not mistaken, phytopharmaceutics has gone like a NCE, and it requires different regulatory agency looking into than the Nutraceuticals. And so I think that it depends upon where one wants to invest time, energy, resources, would depend upon which stream regulatory mechanisms are going to be involved in the R&D that you are embarking upon. So if Amlaki Rasayan, anti-tuberculosis treatment is a phytopharmaceutical and energy bar as ayurvedical. Nagardi Quat as Aushad, motion sickness as phytopharmaceutical and digestive wine. Nisha Amlaki in diabetes, because we had used as DMFN01, and that would have gone as a phytopharmaceutical, while ayurvedical would be Nish Alar. This name has been given, this slide has been prepared by Dr. Vaidya. I may not be knowing much, but it is an urticaria and allergy. Next slide, please.
Dr. Ramavidya,
Yeah.
we are running out of time.
So this last slide are 3 slides.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Use of kratlu as a traditional food by Gujarati new mothers. And I really request that this kind of generation studies can be done, a study of 3 generations. And kratlu has been used for a postpartum during lactation, postpartum period for involution of the uterus and galactagogic effect. The next slide. And this was being prepared, triple domain of Ayurveda, conventional medicine and nutrition science have come together to build a strong foundation for evolving this kind of activity. Next slide. Okay, next. Yeah, so the Katlu has actually 32, here it is written 30, but it has 32 medicinal herbs with ghee and jaggery. I will not go into the details of this. Next slide, please. And this is the last one. So trilateral quest and impact for Ayurveda is required, and that's why collaborative domains and stakeholders, academia, government and industry, and R&D path has been already emphasized. The next. Many thanks, and sorry for the delay that I've caused and taken some more time.
Actually, we wish that we had more time. It is such an interesting and very useful presentation. So there are a lot of people who wanted to know a lot more information on this. And
I would love if somebody would have asked one question and I would have had an opportunity to answer, because
there are several.
The problem that we clinical colleagues or clinical experts, I consider myself a clinical scientist, we don't have an opportunity to interact with the basic either nutrition science people. At our place is a different story, but otherwise. And so I would have loved if some question has come up, and if you can pick up one question and I can answer that.
Okay, now let me ask you one question, which possibly is bothering a lot of people, that many doctors reject supplements to, especially some of these nutraceuticals and ayurvedicals, and they prefer medicines rather than the supplements or nutraceuticals. Can you comment on that? How we can create awareness about the efficacy and usefulness of these ayurvedicals?
I think working with them. See, if you see medical colleges from any plural system of medicine, we don't have nutrition as a subject only, first of all. Important. And that's why what I feel that this kind of a gap can be only by bridge building, investing time, energy, and resources for the younger minds to be influenced, and having projects. And projects will not be rejected, but we don't come out for research projects. And so even this Ayurvedic pharmacoepidemiology, right now there are only 2 people, Girish Tillu and Nutan Nabar. There are more people needed. We have spent money on pharmacovigilance. WHO sponsored it, that's why. But why can't we tell? We don't have that much of a problem for pharmacovigilance. We need this. So my answer to you, Dr. Pai, is that by working with them,
I think I would also request that if we can go to them and probably start a dialogue. If they don't want to hear us, we can go and start creating awareness.
Absolutely.
At whatever platform that we can, so that people after some time will realize the importance of these substances, which are already there in nature, rather than trying to synthesize something which is untested or unknown to nature. Yeah, I think.
So I would ask a counter question. How did you persuade me to come on this platform?
I think that is a beginning, and probably I'll come more often to bring you on such platforms. So thank you very much. There are many more questions, but I think there are many more speakers as well.
I'm
so
sure
what
that
Dolly
could keep those and send it to me. I will be very happy.
We will do that. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Dolly?
Yes, sir.
Can we go to the next speaker?
Yeah.
Thank Dr. Rama Vaidya.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vidya, for that excellent presentation. It was indeed quite insightful, and we have got plenty of questions which I will forward it to you.
Please do. Thank you.
Moving ahead, I would now like to invite the next speaker of today's session, Dr. Sudarshan Rao, to talk on safety and efficacy of nutraceuticals. I would like to take a few minutes to introduce the speaker to you all. Dr. Sudarshan Rao is a former Deputy Director, National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad, India. He is a Chairman Scientific Panel on Biological Hazards at FSSAI. He has more than 100 publications on various aspects of food safety in peer-reviewed journals and proceeding, 20 chapters in book and 10 reports. Honored with Kejriwal Award from All India Food Processors Association in 1997 for his work on HACCP. Platinum Award for his strategy on street foods from futuristic cities in 2010. Served as an expert member of Joint FAO-WHO Expert Committee on Food Additives and FAO Consultant on Street Foods, expert member of International Dairy Federation, Food Safety and Standard Authority of India and the BIS. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I'll share the screen.
Yeah, sir.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is perfect.
Full screen, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sir. Yeah, good afternoon to everybody. And at the outset, I would like to thank the organizers, F&I, and also Amway for giving me this opportunity to talk to you on safety and efficacy of nutraceuticals. So the basic requirements, you just now you had a very very good talk on the various aspects of this, nutraceuticals. The point that comes to us is that in one of the questions I saw that how much they should take and what concentration it should be, that pomegranate they were talking about. So the point that comes to us is that it should be safe. That is the first requirement. So this thing is audible clearly? Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and second thing is, see, when we say nutraceuticals, it is for some physiological benefit that we are expecting from that nutraceutical. So it should serve the purpose. These are the basic requirements. So the most important thing first will be to talk about safety. So this, of course, definition is essentially for food safety. But we can actually apply, because now, all these nutraceuticals, dietary supplements have come under FSSAI. So we will be looking, this can be applied to nutraceuticals also, maybe with slight the deviation from this thing. It is a degree of confidence that food will not cause sickness, harm to the consumer, either in long or acute or chronic. And consumer, when it is prepared, this prepared served also can be actually, maybe Dr. Rama Vaidya can actually watch for it, is that the way you prepare some of the botanicals, the nutraceuticals. So there is a way to do it, and it should be water extract or alcoholic extract, so nothing else is permitted. So if you do that everything, and finally according to intended use, what is the intended use? Again, is the efficacy or the effect that we are expecting from it. So the basic concept of safety is that the dose. So dose decides the toxicity of any product. So it's dose alone will tell you whether it is used is beneficial or toxic. So by this definition, we have to look everything from that point of view, so that we understand. So what is the food safety? Safety of nutraceuticals. So, but the one important thing that I would like to make here is that, your food, nutraceutical or food supplements or functional foods, they are actually the country specific, because it all depends upon our dietary habits, food consumption patterns, and the type of foods to each, the type of foods that we get in our place. So it has to integrate with the regulation. There will be interlinked with this regulation. So maybe we'll be using the international concept of safety, but we have to actually also see what is the regulations, yes, because these regulations are made for country specific requirements. So if you see that this regulation, it came in 2016. Of course, Dr. Vaidya probably was the major contributor for this. Is that when they wanted to make these regulations, there was a lot of discussion on which are the things which have to be put in this. So they have actually the Unani, Siddha, because these are our traditional systems based on our foods that are available and the type of diseases that we get. So Siddha, Unani, and also the Ayurveda, and also of course modern medicine also has contributed some of the nutraceuticals. So all those things have to be put into this. So they have actually prepared a list of nutraceuticals and ingredients, they call it. Sometimes it may not be one single component, it may be a combination of 2-3 things. So there are 1 to 6 schedules provide the list of nutraceutical ingredients whose safety has been established. So now if you see this list, you don't need to, because FSSAI already has actually listed the nutraceuticals or ingredients which can go as a part of nutraceuticals, where safety has been established. There is no further research is required on that, especially on this thing, unless if there is one more issue, is for some of those nutraceuticals or even botanicals, they actually also have given the minimum and maximum dose that can be given. Okay, for some of them there are no safe limits, because at the time of this one there was no available information on those things. And of course, when a person is trying to make a product out of these nutraceutical where safe limit has not been given, then they can use the international reference material to actually this thing, address the issue. So any nutraceutical other than those listed in regulations needs prior approval. So from 2016, of course, this has been amended recently to 21. So anything other than this requires a prior approval. That means that you have to have a lot of information on the toxicity and safety and also the efficacy of those things. So what I am trying to make here point is that your research, everything is interrelated with the regulations that we are in this, because there could be some differences between the type of foods that we eat and type of problems that we have. So the regular toxicological requirements for any new compound, like what we do in additives also, is acute toxicity, short-term toxicity, long-term toxicity, mutagenicity, carcinogenicity, teratogenicity, multi-generation studies. And so these are the classical toxicity studies that are required if it is something new is coming. And then finally, you add up having that low observed adverse effect level. Once you have all this data, so you have to find out from the research studies, because one person cannot and one organization cannot generate all this data. It will be actually collated from all the information all over the world and try to identify what is the low observed adverse effect level for this nutraceutical. And then from there, we actually derive no observed adverse effect level. Okay, so then we actually fix upper limit, because in actually additives, other chemical contaminants, what we do is that we actually have a concept like acceptable daily intake in case of additives, because that are not required otherwise, you can also avoid. And the contaminants which tolerable, because sometimes they enter into your food chain. So there we actually check the tolerable upper intakes. Similarly here also, but in this case, some of those nutrients we actually require. Okay, but if you go beyond the RDA, maybe beyond RDA, recommended dietary allowances for each country may be different. So based on that, we'll have an upper limit based on these data. So this data is generated, and based on that, we'll be actually permitting, I mean, that this thing. And this is the basic requirement of safety, is to address the safety. Here, few things are important to understand. So once you have all this data, what we do is we actually try to do hazard identification. So what is hazard identification? It is known or a potential adverse health effects of a given nutrient. It can be a nutrient or nutraceutical. It involves the collection, organization, evaluation of all information pertaining to the adverse effects of a given nutrient. As I said, the information is available. We have to pick up from wherever this type of work is done. And based on that, we'll try to identify whether this particular nutrient had any effect in anywhere in the world. Have there any case reports? Have there any epidemiological studies done? Like that, and sometimes they actually do experiments also with these things. Based on all that, we'll actually know whether this particular nutraceutical had any effect, any adverse effect anywhere. Okay. So it concludes with summary of evidence concerning the capacity of nutrient to cause one or more types of adverse. So what are the types of, based on this information, we will be able to summarize, saying that what is the evidence that is coming out on this nutrient to cause one or more. Does it cause one type of adverse effect, or it causes many more types of adverse effects? All that information is actually captured in the hazard identification. So how does this data come out? It is based on the earlier slide I have shown, where we have this data. So even epidemiological, I said acute, short term, long term. So every nutraceutical doesn't need all that data. Depending upon the type of nature of that nutrient or nutraceutical, it can be different. Okay, but essentially we are trying to find out whether it causes any adverse health effects on the population. That is the basic requirement. Once you have this information, then we try to can we actually dose dependent effect? So dose response information can we have? That is very important information, because as I said earlier slide, is that it's essentially dose dependent. If it is toxic, it should be dose dependent. So in which of the adverse effects they were able to show the dose dependent effect. So that becomes very important to derive low observed effect level or no observed effect level or UL. So this is very important. So if you don't, you are not able to generate this information, there is dose response effect in any of these studies. So it becomes very difficult for anybody to actually say at what dose this particular this thing has caused the effect. So it should be dose dependent. So we'll be looking, once we have all that data, we'll be looking for that specific information where we can derive this dose dependent effect. Okay. So this information will help us in developing the low observed adverse effect level, no observed effect level. And the uncertainty factor is that inherently there will be a lot of lacuna in the data, or even the when we are actually extrapolating from within the humans, we expect there is a certain variation happening within the population. So taking all that things, so we still use some uncertainty factor. So even that uncertainty factor will take care of, if at all there is anything which we have left out in safety factors, that will take care of that. Finally, we derive the upper limit where we say that beyond this there is a risk. So here the word I use it, tolerable, UL I said tolerable upper intake level. So the tolerable upper intake level refers the highest level of dietary nutrient intake that is likely to pose no risk adverse effects. So almost all individuals in general population, you see this tolerable upper in generally, we actually for nutrients this physiological group wise also infants and children, and also pregnant women, lactating women, all those people are separate ULs will be given. But in general, when you generally look at it, it is for general population who are apparently healthy. As intake increases, your risk of adverse effects increases. It is not just you cross UL, you immediately don't end up into having this thing, that there is risk of adverse effects will increase. The term is chosen because it connotes level of intake that can with high probability be tolerated biologically by individuals, and it does not imply acceptability of that level in any other sense. This is nothing to do with your the efficacy or any other thing. It is only to try to tell people that, okay, if you cross this beyond, you can able to tolerate this intake levels at this level, beyond which it becomes safety concern. So that is what it doesn't actually talk anything about the efficacy or the other things. So then we had an issue actually when we are actually tolerable upper intakes were there. Actually, wherever we have this, as it said, dose dependent effects, we were able to derive that. But there are many number of foods that were actually we did not have any evidence of toxicity at all at the levels of what we have seen in the sense. So in such case, what do we do? So they actually, Shaw and Hathcock in 2000, these are the two scientists, they have actually developed to address this food safety issue, the highest observed intake, where there is absolutely no effect has been identified. So there is no dose dependency here. Here what they are saying is we have observed at this highest level, we have not found any adverse health effects. So this is another way of actually trying to address this food safety issue where we do not have this dose dependent effect. And this is true because, as I said, when we are talking about nutraceuticals, we have been consuming them so many years. We have a lot of epidemiological data saying that we consume that much without any problem. So that can be used as the observed safe level. That later they have actually changed this terminology is in highest observed intake. Okay, so safe actually is they don't want to actually error. They wanted to err on the safer side. They said highest observed intake. So okay, it is highest level intake observed administered as a reported studies acceptable quality. Okay, so this actually maybe some of you are aware. So this is when we are trying to say that we have, because we are talking about some of them are nutrients, some of those nutrients will be working as a nutraceuticals, and some of them bioactive compounds also will be used as a nutraceutical. So when we are talking about nutrients working as a nutraceutical, so you have to look what is the requirement. So even if the deficiency is there, we will end up having the deficiency diseases. So we have a population reference intake, then we have a recommended dietary allowances for countries like what we have for India, ICMR-NI. Then there is actually tolerable upper intake level. So this is the place from where you can say that slowly the adverse effects will start. Okay, as I said, it is a risk that increases, and we cannot specifically say what exactly happens here. And second thing is there could be a lot of variation in between RDA and tolerable upper intake. So in some nutrients the gap is very small, in some nutrients it is very high. Okay, that also will give you an idea that where you actually manipulate that particular nutrients which can have this beneficial effect of nutraceutical. So recently what we have, these people have done, these are because when we say claims substantiation is nothing but the efficacy only, but many times claims are exaggerated, but it has to be reversed, because what happens in biological systems, if you see very high impact in the experimental the clinical studies, when in general population the effect may be not that big. Okay, so that's why when you want to make a claim, you should be very efficacy should be more, claim should be little less. So these are the various types of claims that are permitted indirectly, that the efficacy you can actually demonstrate. But the third one, this is risk reduction claims. I said because I am always coming back to regulation, because you have to go by this Indian regulation, FSSAI. So risk reduction claims have been deleted from April 2022. So because people were misusing, because this very little abstract terminology, it may be very difficult to actually identify specific markers in many cases. So you can casually say it is this is risk reduction. So what these people have done is that, so they actually themselves have, FSSAI themselves have given some risk reduction claims permitted. So calcium and vitamin D, osteoporosis, sodium, hypertension, dietary saturated fat, blood cholesterol, potassium, risk of high blood pressure, alpha linoleic acid, blood cholesterol, soluble dietary fiber, lipid profile. So this is how it is actually structured. It is this thing, because this we cannot change. So okay, so when we say lipid profile, what it means is a normal lipid profile. So beta glucans, if you see that the USFDA, they are talking about reduction in cholesterol, but here in India, if you see FSSAI risk reduction, they say it will actually maintain your normal blood glucose level if you take it regularly. So these are actually the one single this thing for each vitamin A. These are established. So beyond this, you need to have actually efficacy has to be proved. Yeah, that is where I am trying to say why I'm showing this particular slide is that what is actually well accepted, internationally accepted for each vitamin. Sure shot is that vitamin A helps against night blindness. Vitamin D supports strong bones. So these are only the basic this thing which are acceptable. But anything beyond this, if you are actually trying to claim, so efficacy has to be done. In that context only, I was trying to tell you, you have to actually leverage of doing that between RDA and tolerable upper limit. So you see, this is actually, I have taken a slide from internet. So you see that vitamin D, these are the benefits that actually people claim. Okay, there are so many studies are done. They may be having some studies to show, but what is actually for regulatory purpose, which can be actually used for this thing, is that healthy bones. That is a okay. So supports immune system, improves brain function. All those things, we should have a clinical trial to actually demonstrate the efficacy of that vitamin D. Okay. So when we are trying to see vitamin D, what is the hazard characterization? Because I told you safety aspect we are dealing with. So hypercalcemia was the only adverse effect found in the toxic studies. So there are so many different stocks. As I said in hazard characterization, so hazard identification, we try to see that what are all the adverse effects which have been reported in the literature and also elsewhere in the world. We finally found that only one adverse effect, that is hypercalcemia, is the only the toxic studies of vitamin D. So in this, they from these studies, they have actually derived the no observed effects level is 10,000 international units. And I told you that uncertainty factor in this studies, because most of these studies are actually taken from the human subjects only, because the uncertainty will be less. When we are doing animal studies and trying to extrapolate it to humans, we'll be using 100 in additives. But here, in most of these nutrients, we don't require that much uncertainty, because most of these studies are done in human subjects only. So uncertainty factor, this is only to take individual variation and uncertainties in the data that is available to us. And based on that, you just divide 10,000 by 2.5, you get the 4,000 international units per day. Okay. So, but you see that RDA for vitamin D is only 400 international units. Okay. So as I said, in this case, you have a large margin of difference between UL and RDA. And probably that is the range where you are, whatever you want to actually claim on the functional properties, I mean, other than the basic nutrient function, you can actually work on it. Similarly, I have taken one more example. This is a bioactive principle, is a lycopene. You know, lycopene is a carotenoid, most potent antioxidant. You know, major sources are tomato, carrot, watermelon, papaya. High intake of lycopene is atheroprotective. That is what is reported. So it reduces LDL cholesterol, inhibits several cancer cells. So they have a lot of studies done. 6 mg per day reduces the risk of prostate cancer. So all those things are there as individual studies, but it is not still, I think there is no clinical trial to actually make a claim on that, which internationally accepted claim. Okay. So here also, when we talk about the safety issues, no adverse effects except keratonemia. That's what it means, is that the lot of this carotenoid goes into your liver, and also the color of the skin will change. So that is the only adverse effect they have found with lycopene. and lycopene deposition was observed in the liver, but it did not affect the hepatic dysfunction. Okay, so that's why it was not considered, because once you remove that, if you stop taking that lycopene, the skin color becomes normal. So it is not a permanent effect, and it didn't actually affect the liver function. So what they have done is they try to actually identify the, as I said, is the dose dependent effect. So there was a lot of variation, and because the IOM, international this thing, medicine, this is US FDA, FDA, and EFSA is European Food Safety Authority. So, and these people actually, each one has a different view on lycopene. So the IOM, in which actually the many international agent, everybody actually follows this. So they said this data is not reliable, and due to lack of data, no TUL can be derived. That means they said there is no TUL, tolerable upper limit. Okay, for this, if you want to use, probably you have to look for some other source. But EFSA said they have done some work, and based on that, they have said that they have taken another study, and they said 50 mg per kg body weight per day is okay. Whereas JECFA is actually is additive, because this lycopene is also used as an additive in foods. So there they said no ADI specified. That means at the levels of its intake or usage, there is absolutely no health hazard associated with. So then in this context only, this highest observed intake concept came, and they told that 20 mg we have seen per day consumption is safe. So not safe, this is without any effect. Okay, there is a slight difference when you say safe and without any effects. Okay, so that 20 mg per day it has been taken. So of course, I spent a lot of time on safety aspects. So of course, this efficacy is well-designed human clinical trial. So what happens is this nutriepidemiology, all those informations are very important, and they'll form the basis of developing a actually human clinical trial. So, but ultimately, for actually to put into the market, this human well-designed human clinical trials are required for this. If you are trying to say, if you are making any claim of efficacy of any such thing. Okay, so basic information like why calcium will help in bone, this thing that doesn't require any, because it's already well established. But anything other than that, if you want to do that, if you want, so you should be able to well-designed human clinical trials. So observational studies are not sufficient, and many of the, probably that's what I think Madam was trying to tell you. We have to do a lot of research on the existing Indian information and Ayurveda, so that a lot of information is already available. Only thing is we have to put them in the context of what is required for the regulation, but it has to be internationally accepted. Okay, so the in vitro animal studies, all those things will actually give, because you can't do all the experiments with humans. So you can get all that biochemical basis, because that's very important. So most, if you want to say something is effective against something, you should be able to show what is the biochemical mechanism by which this particular nutraceutical is showing its efficacy. Okay, that becomes very basic requirement.
Dr. Sudarshan,
yeah,
we are running out of time.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just probably come to because this may become little too technical for them. Okay, what I am trying to say is that so the direct measurement, this is very important, is that you should have validated, because many of the diseases are like NCDs, non-communicable diseases. So you will not be able to produce a disease. So you should be able to have some markers under which it is coming. Like, when we are talking about plasma cholesterol for cardiovascular diseases. So, okay, you should have validated biomarker to tell. So this particular marker is changing. If it changes, it will definitely reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. Something like that has to be done. And production, because this is very important in quality and all. Maybe the next speaker is trying to will talk on that. And study design, because just now Rama Vaidya madam has told that they said the number was a little less. So that is very important. Those things are also looked into for making a valid. So these are all the things. Probably I'll not go much into this. Okay. So here you see that I just now told that beta glucan, USFD says they has a beneficial effect on lowering the serum cholesterol. Is US FDA permits this claim, but in India, help in reduction of rise in blood glucose after that meal, because you should be more concerned about FSI. And of course, there are so many claims. I told rice bran oil. So you need actually 300 mg per day. For 8-week RC study, they were able to show that it can help in lowering cholesterol, but not other things are not, there is no RCTs on those. So you can actually rely on one thing. Again, you have to see that how much oil you take every day, and should you only stick to rice bran oil throughout your life. So those are things which have to be understood. So to conclude, safety and efficacy are basic requirements, and observation studies or animal studies, all those things will definitely help to understand the biochemical basis of the efficacy, but human clinical trial is a must to show the efficacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, it was very involved, very technical, but very essential presentation, because that gives an insight into how the nutraceuticals or substances derived are found to be safe, found to be efficacious. So thank you very much, Dr. Sudarshan.
Yeah.
There are many questions, but I will just ask maybe one or maybe two questions. The first question is from Ashwini. Sir, why is sports drink not included in FSDU for sports person, as it is so widely used and also helpful for sports person? And she also wants to know, can you please let us know the TUL for biotin? Dr. Sudarshan.
Yeah, no, offhand I'll not be able to.
Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah, but my point is that in the regulation, if you go through, they'll actually all those informations are sport nutrition, weight control, everything has been addressed. You just have to go through. That's what I said. So a lot of information is given the regulations also. Don't think regulations are just to regulate the business, but there are a lot of scientific data has come into that. If you go through those regulations little carefully, you get a lot of information which many of your doubts will be cleared. So I request all of the people to just Nutra regulation, and you will find immense, I mean, a lot of ideas to do new products. Yeah.
Now, one more question, maybe a short answer for that from Mr. Vatam. Do we have any botanicals, herbs list where all safe limits of using them has been given under FSSAI, USDA, wherever? Do we have any claims guide where we can get what to claim or not to claim? You have made a mention of claiming. So
Yeah.
can you just throw light on that?
Yeah, yes, that's what. So now not much this thing scope is given for people to make whatever the claim they make. So that's the reason why I told you that risk reduction also there was open. Now they have closed it by giving what are the risk reduction claim that can use. For vitamins, they have given what is the claim that is permitted. Other than that, they have to actually produce the data based on FSSI. This thing has to be taken from that. So there is actually many people get confused. So what is on the label is different from what is the advertisement. Okay, so okay, so advertisement is different, and that is actually taken care by ASCI, Advertisement Council of India. So you can actually online, they take all the complaints. So you can, if you have any issues with that. But what I am saying is what is claimed on the label of the product is different from what is the claim that they are making on advertisements is different. And there is not much scope for people to make whatever the claims they want to make, just like that.
Thank you very much for giving a very nice presentation on the understanding of all these safety and efficacy as well as claims concepts. Thank you very much, Dr. Sudarshan, for having joined us. Dolly?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. That was a very detailed presentation. I would now like to invite the next speaker of today's session, Dr. Vidya Sridhar and Mr. Vikram, to explain the processes and formulations for food and supplements. Let me introduce the speaker to you all. Dr. Vidya Sridhar is a senior manager, food designer, Amway India Enterprises. She is a food science professional with more than 20 years of experience in R&D, QA, and manufacturing both in the US and India in a wide range of food platforms. With a PhD from University of Wisconsin, Madison, and a MS from Kansas State University in food science, she is a domain expert in dairy, beverages, meat analog, natural products, protein, emulsions, gums and stabilizer, and UHT processing. She holds 2 US patents, one for her PhD research and another for developing a jelly beverage at PepsiCo. She recently completed a lead auditor course in FSCC 22000 with IRCA certification. At Amway, Dr. Vidya leads food innovation and research for emerging hub of Amway Global INS and is currently establishing a state-of-the-art food innovation center at Chennai, India. Mr. Vikram. Mr. Vikram is a process development engineer in innovation and science at Amway Global Service Private Limited, with over 13 years of experience in formulation and process development of tablets, capsules, syrup, gummies, lozenges, bars, and reconstitution powder. He is a postgraduate in pharmacy from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences. Prior joining to Amway, he was associated with leading Ayurvedic company. Currently in Amway, he is taking care of process and formulation development of nutrition and supplements product for emerging markets. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dolly. Let me share my screen. Is it on full mode?
Not yet.
Yeah, right now.
No, ma'am.
Not yet.
Okay. It is on full mode actually at my end.
Can you try sharing the screen again?
Yeah, I'll try again. Is it on full mode?
No, ma'am. We can't see your screen, ma'am.
Oh, you can't see my screen. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 minute. Let me again share screen. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you put it in presentation mode?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thanks for an excellent introduction. Hi, everyone. It's been a pleasure and a great opportunity for me to share knowledge here in this forum on formulation development with regards to food formulations in particular, but I'll touch upon the process as well. Before I deep dive into the formulation development, I just wanted to give a brief introduction on Amway's R&D footprint across the globe. So we are having R&D centers across the globe, as you can see here, with Buena Park, California as our headquarters. We as Emerging Hub are located in India in 4 different locations. In Gurgaon, which is in Delhi area, we have the nutrition lab, packaging and analytical lab. In Chennai, we have the food lab where I reside. Bangalore, we have the botanical lab and the clinical team. In Madurai, we have the pilot facility that supports the scale up and pilot operations that Vikram, my colleague, will be talking about. So Amway as a global entity has scientists from all kinds of fields of study. So you can say that the brain power at Amway R&D is amazing indeed. We have 75 and over scientific laboratories. As Dr. Sudarshan and Dr. Vaidya were talking about various research that we do it at Amway, at the agricultural research or the clinical testing, or even the safety aspects of the various ingredients that we use. For us, the quality is of prime importance. So we invest in a lot of science and technology so that we can bring the best ingredient and the best product to the consumer. So what are the products? There are various products and brands that we have. As you can see in the slide, we have products ranging in the supplements as well as the home care and beauty and PC. In the supplement section, we have the brand Nutralite. The philosophy of brand Nutralite is having the best science and the best of nature for the best product. And how do we make that product? We use a 9-step process all through the organization that talks about the purity and the safety and the potency. We ensure that we pick the right product right from the source, which is the farm, to the fork. So the traceability, the sustainability, everything is in place, and we pick the right part so that the efficacy is of the right nature. So we extract it properly and then we incorporate it into the food so that food or even supplements, we ensure that the efficacy remains the same at till the end of shelf life. We do that by picking the right processes and thus we deliver the right quality product. So coming to the crux of my presentation, which is formulation development, just wanted to give an overview on the product development process as such. As many of you know, it starts always with a concept that chimes with the consumer need. If it doesn't chime with the consumer need, there is no success in launch. So we ensure that our product at the concept level is in sync with the consumer need. There's a lot of research that we do at the market research group, and then that totally brings in the analysis part where the business analysis is done, the cost benefit ratio is done, because ultimately it's the commercialization aspect that really succeeds as well. So we ensure that we bring in that aspect into our process, and then we develop the product once that project brief is given to us. I'll be elaborating more on this process, the development process. And post development, it is launched in the market. So some of the key partners that we try to work with in formulation development, because it's not something that we can do in silo, right? So in the formulation development process, for example, we partner with the marketing and insight group, where, as I mentioned before, the consumer need is taken into concern. And as Dr. Sudarshan Rao had mentioned, we also make sure that it complies with the regulatory, local regulations and ensure that the claims are met. So we have the botanical and the clinical team within our R&D that work on the safety aspect, the clinical aspect, how efficacious our ingredients can be, what can we bring to the table to bring the USP or the unique selling point to this product. So we have to work with each of these teams to bring out the concept, to bring those ingredients, pick and select the ingredients that can make that unique claim that we would like to bring to the product. Then, of course, we have the botanical team that helps us with bringing the best of the botanicals, and that Mr. Vijendra will be covering in his presentation. We also work with our suppliers and the quality team that audits these suppliers who provide us raw materials as well as suppliers who co-manufacture products for us. We make sure that the quality of these suppliers are of the highest, because we don't want product to be made at any other than our standards. So we, together with all these people, we try to develop the product, because the ingredients that go into the formulation comes from the approved suppliers. After we develop the product, we have the analytical team that Mr. Vivek will be elaborating on, that we work with to ensure that we can detect the actives in our products. And that's a challenge by itself, because detecting it in the raw material is one challenge, and then detecting it in the finished product is another challenge, because the matrix that we work with can interfere with the active recovery. So we work with the analytical team very closely. So finding the right partners, the key takeaway from the slide is to find the right partners and to work with them to ensure that we can get success in product development. So let's get a little deeper into the formulation development steps. In many food formats that I've worked before, which are not into the nutraceutical or the health supplement platforms, you would have steps number 2, 3, and 4 elaborated. But the step number 1 that I'm talking about here, which is the ingredient selection and screening, and then the active interaction with the base ingredients, is very key when it comes to nutraceuticals and supplements. Why is that so? Because these actives that are key for the claims that we make in these products are the ones that need to be, working together in the matrix that we develop. Let's take an example. If it's a tablet, you can mix it together and there is no sensorials to it. You can just gulp it with water. But when it comes to food formulations, it has a whole new realm of challenges. I'll elaborate on the challenges in the next slide. But to start with, our team actually has to work individually with these ingredients. Every ingredient has to be screened for its efficacy doses as well as for its sensorials. And then after each ingredient is screened, we screen the interactions between these ingredients. And at this stage is when we wean out the ones that we doesn't work for us. And then we go back to the botanical team and the clinical team, and the ideation will have to start all over again to ensure that our concept is back on track. So this process of going to and fro is what is very important for the product success down the road for the second and the third steps. Once we overcome this first step hurdle is when we develop the formula and how the process works with the formula to develop that yummy food product that we eat, whether it's a nutrition bar or a gummy or a powdered drink in food formulations. We ensure that the flavor and the color do not impact the actives and the formula and the matrix. So we work together with the flavor houses to ensure that we mask some of these bitter notes or off dates coming from various actives, such as the botanicals or many of the vitamins and minerals. So our team works with external and internal partners to develop a yummy and tasty formulation. Now, when we develop that product, the third critical step is analysis and initial stability. Why is that critical? Because once you put it in a stability kind of an environment, in the sense it's an acceleration or a forced degradation that we do. So when we study this, we understand how our product behaves, the final product, whether it is sensorial, whether it is texture, whether the color is fading, the flavor is going away, or if the actives are recovered properly at the zero time frame as well as at the end of the accelerated shelf life. So the initial stability actually helps us gauge the challenge that we have with this project, whether we can go ahead with the current levels or we have to add more, which are called overages. We try to add those overages and we try to circumvent the taste impact again. So it goes back to reformulation. So we do this to and fro many a times until the final product is formed that has some good amount of stability. And that is when we decide to submit it to marketing and market research is done on that. Once that formula is finalized, post research is when we do a full-fledged stability at lab level and it gets documented and the technology is transferred to the processing team for the next step, which is what Vikram will be talking to you about, the scale up and the commercialization aspect. Now, coming to the challenges, I think I've kind of alluded to it during my previous slide. However, I just want to allude to the same challenges that the nutraceutical or the health supplement industry faces quite a bit, especially when we have to use clean label ingredients, where we have to use natural color, natural flavor, no preservatives, a plant forward, with botanicals and nutraceuticals at high efficacy doses. For example, in foods for special dietary use, we will have to use them at very high efficacy doses. So at that time, we have to circumvent the sensorials. So we have to add flavors or maskers or many of these that will help us to mask these, but at a cost, right? So we have to also balance the cost of the ingredients. So it's a game that we play within our division where we try to help bring out the claims with the best quality. And that's the challenge that we have at formulation, to bring the best quality, the right claims with the highest efficacy dose that brings the claim, but yet it has to taste good and it has to have the brand standards, which is the natural color, no preservatives. We also have to work with vendors who are approved in the system. We have very high quality standards to approve vendors. So sometimes we have gone the path where we would have approved a flavor, but the flavor house fails in the quality audit. Then we come back again to the drawing board and we try to develop a new flavor because the other flavor did not get through with the quality audit. So these are the challenges that we face. So we learn with every step and we try to make ourselves more better prepared in the next time around. Then we have the stability challenges, as I mentioned, where we have to ensure that we add the overages and we check for the active levels throughout the shelf life. And then we have the analytical method development, which will be elaborated more by my colleague, Mr. Vivek, in his presentation. So sometimes these methods are not very easy when it comes to the matrices that we work with. So we'll have to work very closely to ensure that we recover the actives. It may not be because of the heat degradation or the processing. It could be purely because the method is not correctly developed. So we'll have to develop with the analytical team to understand these nuances, and they are the experts in that. So we work with them. So these are a kind of a summary on how we work in the formulation and develop an awesome product. We at Amway have a foods team, resides at Chennai and Gurgaon as well. We work in various formats. We hope to work more in various other new formats as well and bring the best of the products into the market. So thank you for the time, and I pass along the presentation to Mr. Vikram. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya.
Thank you,
I
Doctor.
think we can combine the questions together after
Sure.
Vikram's presentation. Yeah.
Sure.
Mr. Vikram, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. Please let me know if my screen is visible now.
Yeah, it is visible.
Thank you. So hi, good evening all. So I shall be taking you all through the unsung part of a product development. So in today's session, I just try to briefly explain on who, what, where, why, how process development is an important part of a product development. As all of you know, the product development usually starts with an ideation that is generated in some smart brains, for which shape is given. For which a shape is given by a formulation development, after which the quality attributes, process parameters are embedded into the product by process development team to bring up a quality and a safe product which are suitable for the commercializations. So moving to next, who is process development? So to explain in a complicated way, process development is a multi-step process that take an idea from a conception to the consumer. And to explain in a simplest way, process development involves a lot of trials and error to fix a right way of manufacturing for the products. Now moving ahead, what exactly process development team people do other than smart working? So they utilize the science and technology to develop the process which are suitable to be scaled up, which basically means moving a product from the lab scale to the larger scale. For example, moving a product development from a 1 kg batch size to the 10 kg of pilot scale, or to the 100 kg of plant testing. Okay, and usually process development scale up takes more than once. It might be pilot testing or plant testing. And during process development, quality testings are embedded into product by creating specifications or the control points. Scale-up process exposes the product to the different parameters and steps of manufacturing, which are necessary to build a safety and quality into the products. Process development runs also help us to understand how product runs at different conditions. How efficient is the process what we have employed for manufacturing that product? And scale-up runs. Almost many of the time, the consecutive scale-up runs what we run makes us understand how much is the loss occurring during the process of scale-up, and we get an opportunity of understanding where the loss of a product is happening and techniques to overcome them. And lastly, process development run helps in determining most accurate product cost. So where process development is involved. So process development is a continuous process. This takes place throughout the product life cycle because there always a existence of some inevitable changes happening to the product. This might be because of man, material, or machines. So it is important that process development is throughout the life cycle of the product. And also process development involves three main components in it. So one is a scale up, testing, and equipment. These three are interlinked with each other, which are necessary for bringing up a quality, safety, and consistency to the product. And not necessarily all the three components are linear steps. Some parts may overlap and some need to happen simultaneously during the processing. So for example, scale up, if we are doing ingredient specification, meanwhile we may also have a plan of testing the samples. At the same time, we may also be thinking of which equipment to be used, what is the size of equipment. So this can't be a linear, and this happens simultaneously. Either scale up, testing equipment, or testing and equipment. So multitasking. So moving to now, why the process development? So as a part of process development, identification of critical quality attributes, which are paramount requirement for the product in turn, can be achieved. Monitoring of critical process parameter, critical material attributes contributes to the critical quality of a product. Determining a critical process parameter is a valuable science-based process which is used in quality risk management. This can aid in identifying which process or a parameter potentially influences the quality of a product. And another term which is nowadays more oftenly used in CQA is CMA, that is critical material attributes. This relates to the input material, their physical, chemical, and microbiological properties. Together, when we put up a critical quality attributes, critical process parameters, critical material attributes, and establish a process, we get a value ranges or a boundaries, which gives well established a design space. So now this design space, when we are working within the design space, it ensures the development done within this space will be yielding a consistent quality product matching to the set specifications. So design space gives us a boundary, and there will be a more unlikely chances that we move out of this design space when we are processing a product. And how we do this is one simple example of a mixing parameter, how the critical parameters are important for the process. If we are considering the particle parameters such as particle size, shape, density, hygroscopicity, important, they are the critical points. And if you consider for the mixing process, in which type of mixer, speed, batch volume, and movement will be the critical consideration to be given. And some consideration during a transportation, because of a vibration, there might be a chances of segregation and demixing. The importance also should be considered during the of the transportation also, because of the critical process parameters. And in the bottom, if you can see the picturizations, there are some pictures. The initial ones, let me take up the initial ones, which attributes to the quality of a material, critical material attributes, which shows the formation of the arches, plug, buildups, or rat hole formation in the hoppers. So this may affect the process flow. And next one is a process related, in which the equipment, you can see the baffles difference. Here there is only one baffle, whereas here we have a 4 baffles, and here we have a 6 baffle. So mixing variability, mixing will be more efficient in the tank which is having a 6 baffle. Sorry. Okay.
Please continue.
Yeah. So these are the picturization of how the critical process parameters, critical equipments to be considered while developing a process. And now how we are interpreting this. So there is process analytical technique which helps in development of novel sampling methods. It is an analytical tool allow for timely measurement of critical parameters. So systematic analysis and control of the process based on real-time process monitoring of critical quality attributes helps to assure consistent quality in the end products. In a conventional way, usually we used to measure the test the product at the end of once the product is finished, but application of these pad technologies, we will be able to implement the testing during the process, during the initial stage of the process, so that the product which is coming out will have completely tested online, inline, and at line. And with this, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation, Vikram.
Thank you.
I think now we can take questions for both Dr. Vidya and yourself. Dolly?
Hello.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can ask Dr. Vidya first.
Yeah. So, Dr. Vidya, I think you have already answered this question, but to let others know about this, there was a question from Paridhi Gupta that do you analyze each and every actives, that is minerals, vitamins, amino acids in the finished product? And if yes, that is good. But if not, how do you select the makers or actives to be analyzed in finished product?
Yes, I did answer that. So when we add any of these vitamins and minerals in the nutrition claim label, we are required to measure all of them when we declare it on the label. So we ensure that we measure them at zero time frame as well as at the end of stability, and we try to ensure we add the overages accordingly so we can detect it at the end of shelf life. But again, depending on the matrix, so for example, if we do a validation study and we understand that we add this much and we recover this much, we don't have to necessarily measure all of the vitamins and minerals during commercialization aspect. There we can do a marker study where we can do, let's say, a water soluble vitamin or a fat soluble vitamin, and then we can do that on a lot basis. So we don't have to do it on a every lot basis. That is what I understand. But what I'm saying is when we validate that formula and we ensure that what is written on the label is correct, we ensure we do all the detection on the actives.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Another question is there for you that it is from Mr. Manas Day that please explain how a product can be stable in room temperature without having any preservatives.
Right, right. That's an excellent question. So we deal with products which are without preservatives. And how do we do that? We ensure that we pick the ingredients as well as the suppliers that supply those ingredients in the right way. So we ensure that the certificate of analysis is understood. How is the micro load in those ingredients? We also go and audit the supplier to make sure that he follows the right GMPs. So that's why we don't compromise on many of the suppliers. We have very few suppliers that have to pass through the approved vendor program or the audits. So that is how we ensure that we bring the best quality ingredient. Now, once we formulate, we also have to ensure that we manufacture at the right place. So it is in the highest of the GMPs. And these points will be again touched upon by Mr. Vivek in his next seminar, which is about quality of our ingredients and the process.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Moving to Mr. Vikram. So we have a question for you that how do we ensure content uniformity of flavors which is present in less than 5% in formulation?
Thank you. Thanks for that. Is it really necessary for 5% of a flavor to establish a content uniformity? That will be my first question. And sorry, yes, we can do that provided if we have some marker in that, or we have fixed any marker compound which can be determined even at the minor or a minute quantity in the substance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Another question is there that it's from Radhika that in Neutralite we talk about concentrates. In ITC co-branded beverages we use a terminology does not have concentrates but only fruit juice? Kindly clarify if you could.
May I take that question, Vikram?
Sure, doctor.
Yes, I wanted to clarify that actually. See, when ITC co-branded products are discussed, it is about fruit concentrates, where we try to say that we are not from a concentrate of fruit. We use directly the juice, directly like without the concentration of the juice. But when we talk about concentrates, I think it's a misnomer. I think you're talking about extracts. So when we talk about botanical extracts and things like that, they are basically concentrated actives. So why do we use that in our products? Because we use it in very, very high quantities. We cannot afford to use them in, let's say a kilogram level for a small milligram tablet. So we need to concentrate the extracts to bring it to the milligram level or the microgram level, the actives, so that we can incorporate into tablets or the gummies or the bars. So that's the difference between the two.
Thank you for clarifying that, Dr. Vidya. So we have more questions, but looking at the time, we would suggest to go to the next speaker and we can take this question later.
Sure.
So thank you, Dr. Vidya, and thank you, Mr. Vikram, for that excellent presentation. Moving ahead, I would now like to invite the next speaker of today's session, Mr. Vivek Parashar and Mr. Vijendra Kumar, to talk on quality standards in dietary supplements, plus ingredients and botanical traceability and sustainability. I'll introduce the speaker. Mr. Vijendra Kumar is a botanical and analytical research professional with 16 years of experience in botanical, agriculture and analytical research with expertise on novel extraction techniques and ingredient formulation. He has done his master's degree in general chemistry from University of Mysore. Focused areas include botanical chassis development, green thread innovation, novel technologies like supercritical fluid extraction, low polarity water extraction to bring in clean extract with improved bioavailability. Before joining Amway family, his association were with the Himalaya Drug Company, ITC, R&D Center, Anthem Biosciences, and Jubilant Biosys. Mr. Vivek Parashar, he is an analytical research professional with 12 years of experience in analytical research and development and quality management system. He has done his master's degree in philosophy in analytical and applied chemistry and master's degree in project management. Mr. Vivek's expertise includes chromatographic and spectroscopic solutions for analytical method development and validation, protocol designing, analytical technology transfer in domain of pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, food and beverages, and environment science. He is certified internal auditor for quality management system as per ISO requirements and imparts training on good food laboratory practices for academic and scientific professionals on behalf of FSSAI. Before joining Amway family, his association with Jubilant Life Science, Lupin Laboratories, Ranbaxy Laboratories, and FICCI Research and Analytical Center. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dolly, for introducing us. So, from quality in dietary supplement, Vijendra, maybe I think I shall take it first. Thank you. Allow me to share my screen.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Okay, guys, please help me by telling if my screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sure. Thank you. So, welcome, guys. I really thank PFNDI for providing this platform wherein we can talk about quality standards, dietary supplements, practices in the market, formulation, processing, and botanicals. My topic for today is quality standards in dietary supplements. If I talk about this particular subject, there are two keywords that we can focus on. Number one is dietary supplement, and the second one is quality standards. So we, I think, simply consider that the body which we have accumulated over time, in Desi language, we say that this is just a soil. What do we mean by when we say so? Because we are eating food and that food converts into energy and that makes our cells and we become bigger and bigger day by day. So this accumulation has given us the strength that we have. The current scenario in which we live, we have food which is providing these nutritions, but it may not be enough. And to substantiate that, there is a need of dietary supplement in our regular diet. If I talk about these dietary supplements, so as per USP, we can define it as the food which is different from the conventional food which we eat, but provides the nutrients which are required by the body in addition, is called as dietary supplement. There is this FSSR regulation which was published in 2016 under regulation number 6, which talks about nutraceuticals or dietary supplement, and they talk about 6 different categories, which includes health supplement, nutraceuticals, FSTU, which is food for special dietary uses, food for special medical purposes, which is FSMP, functional food, and novel food. There is this new direction which came in the month of March 2022, and according to which now the new categories are health supplement, nutraceuticals, food in FSTU, FSMP, and prebiotic and probiotic foods. If we talk about the format in which these dietary supplements are given along with the food that we eat, so it is generally, I think we consider that this can be in the form of tablets, capsules, syrups, powders, gummies, jellies, and bars. These are the certain formulations which have been approved or recommended by FSSI. And if you have to formulate these formulations, then there are certain list of ingredients which in earlier presentation, Dr. Sudarshan has also talked about. He talked about that there are 6 schedules, which now as per current directions are 4. We have nutrients, which includes vitamins, minerals, amino acids, which means the protein and other nutrients. We have schedule number 2, which talks about plant and botanicals. We have molecules and extract from botanical or maybe other sources also. We have schedule number 4, which talks about probiotic and prebiotics. Now, why it is necessary for us to refer these ingredients for our formulations from these lists only? It was also very well explained by Dr. Sudarshan in his presentation that these ingredients listed in these schedules have been approved or qualified for their efficacy and safety aspects. And we can simply believe on these things once we use them, that they are safe for human consumption or they will be approved. Furthermore, their doses and their NOAEL and TOEL are also defined there. So referring these ingredients give us that platform wherein we comply to the letter of the law, which in our case is FSSI. It is very much important for us to ensure the quality of these ingredients that we use. And when you talk about quality, so the layman language says that the purpose and the intentions that you have had while defining a benchmark, then, and if you achieve that, that is called as quality. There are basically 3 attributes to it. Number 1, you should be able to identify the quality every single time. There must be scientific tools that help you to identify that. The strength, which we call as potency of the ingredient, should be identified. It should be quantifiable. It should be consistent throughout the process. It should be pure also. When we talk about purity, which means something which does not have impurities in it. Impurities could be extraneous matter also, anything except what you had intended it for. So if I talk about this quality and I connect it with the practices that we have in Amway, we should understand that what kind of quality measures we need to take. Number 1, that when we work in India for a regulatory body like FSSI, there are some compulsive attributes that we have to comply to. And these attributes are for safety, quality, and efficacy. If I talk about safety per se, then if I say my product should be safe for human consumption, I mean to say that it should be free from heavy metals, pesticides, antibiotics, natural occurring toxic substances, mycotoxins, aflatoxins, or anything which I don't want in my product portfolio or which is toxic for the human body. It should be a quality product. Again, like I said earlier, when we talk about quality product, the quality which can be estimated, which can be determined every single time, a consistent one, that kind of product we should be formulating. And even if my product is safe for human consumption, if it is a quality product, but if it is not effective when it is consumed by a consumer, then there is no point of having this kind of product line. So as per FSSI requirement, it should be in line with the RDA, especially for dietary supplement. We say that the minimum 15% of RDA requirement should be met. Apart from this, there should be clinically proven evidence-based studies which claims that our product is effective, and these studies sometimes are in vitro or sometimes in vivo. Because we, as being MWay, have our presence all across the globe. We are not only working for our Indian regulations, we keep on exporting our product lines to different countries also. We exchange our product from across the globe. And this is where the internal quality management system also comes in picture. Because sometimes we, as a land of the law, we comply to FSSI requirement, but over and above, we have our own internal quality check systems. Like Dr. Vidya told during her presentation that we have a RM screening programmings, wherein our supplier qualification team, they do audit the suppliers. They ensure that every single raw material is complying to their own specifications, and the quality checks are placed there. We also have EcoCert and Nutracert programs, which in further slides, Vijendra would talk about. When we talk about global standards, so I think if I give it a touch of analytical side, then I would say that I use analytical tools and techniques, which I call as equipments and methods. So all the equipments that I have, they are complying to DQ, which is design qualification, IQ, which is installation qualification, OQ and PQ, which is operational, and performance qualification as per USP. Not all, but all our chromatographic equipments, they are complying with CFR requirement, which is Code of Federal Regulation, which is maintained to ensure the audit trail of data that we generate here. And then country-specific GXP requirement also. When I say GXP, I mean good documentation practices, good laboratory practices, good manufacturing practices. In India, we have good food laboratory practices also, which we call as GFLP. These equipments, when I run, they need certain analytical methods. These are stability indicating analytical methods, which are verified, validated. And why these are validated and verified? Because we have this intention is that my product goes to any part of the world, any part of the country, the globe. If it is tested using those methods, they produce the same or equivalent results. And with that objective, we preferably uses the methods from compendias like FSSI lab manuals, dietary supplement compendium, USP, IP, BP, FCC, AOAC, ISO, and IS methods. And once we have these standards there placed, we have some guidelines also, because in a country like India, where this whole industry is evolving, the nutraceutical regulations are being updated. There is not much clarity which has been given on shelf life studies of the product. We refer international guidelines, which is ICH, International Conference on Harmonization. We refer guideline number 1, which is quality guideline number 1, Q1 R2 for our shelf life studies, and Q2 for our validation of analytical methods. So that's how in our analytical function, we ensure that at each step, the quality is maintained. If I explain the same thing through a certain process, I would say that although these processes have been explained earlier by Vikram and Dr. Vidya, but in this process, you can see that I uses, because once I ideate my product line, that I ideate that I have to make a particular product, with that ideation, I know that what kind of raw materials I am going to use in the process. When it's about raw material, I need to ensure that raw material are qualified as per FSSI requirement or any other compendium which they are complying to or which they are claimed for. And every single time the quality is met. And with that objective, vendors are qualified. These qualified raw materials, when they go to a formulation development team, they formulate it, they take their own trials. There are so many in-process controls at formulation end also, at analytical end also. And once we ensure that our product is made in line with what we wanted it to be, in line with what a regulatory wants it to be like, we start the commercial production. And in all these processes, we have multiple small components which are inherited there. Like when I say MEMV, I talk about method evaluation and method verification. Sometimes vendor says that these methods are not listed in compendia per se when assay is required, and that assay method is not there in the listed compendias, and vendor says that after extracting the material, I have developed my own in-house method, and he claims that my method is validated one. But still, as being MFA, we ensure that the quality is met, and therefore method evaluation, the method provided by vendor is evaluated by us. We verify it. Something wherein we develop the methods by ourselves, or sometimes even the compendial methods, if they are not specific to the product line which we are working on, we optimize the method, and I call it MO, which is method optimization and method validation. Once the developmental activity has happened, I transfer the method to the commercial site, and I call it TT, which is technology transfer, analytical technology transfer. And once the commercial production starts, then the quality is controlled by quality control team and the quality assurance team. And this is how we have multiple quality check system and ensure that the product which is going to the consumer is of one of the best quality product. I think this also have been explained earlier. We have our analytical research laboratory in Gurgaon. We are also supported by 3 different locations like Bangalore, Chennai, and Madurai. Although they are meant for product development, but they have small equipments there also. So some activities are happening there, but majorly all the analytical research is supported by our Gurgaon laboratory. In the Gurgaon laboratory, when I say, because I have been talking about the equipment which we have. So here's a list of those equipments. The one is high performance liquid chromatography. We have spectroscopic equipment also for the characterization of product. We have dissolution apparatus for vitro assays. We have automated assemblies for fat and proteins. Why I'm bringing these points here? Because we are the world leader in nutraceutical category. We produce one of the best protein powder, and to automate the process of checking quality, we have these automated instruments. We have macro and micronutrients. Macro means especially these fat, protein, carbohydrate, sugar, fiber. And then micro means especially minerals and vitamins. So mineral testings we do by ICP-MS, and vitamin testings and phytocompounds, they are being tested by HPLC. Identification and separation of phytocompound is a little challenging area. In fact, many people do not have that kind of infrastructure and capability in the market. So we have this HPTLC equipment also, which is there in the Madurai lab. Our plant people, our botanical team handles that. And this is to ensure that the pigments and the phytocompounds we use are the one which meets the requirement. This is whatever we do actually. Still, as per ISO 17025 requirement or NABL requirement or FSSI audit requirement, they always claim that there is a possibility that your own internal analytical research and development team or quality team may be biased or partial towards your product lines. And with that objective, FSSI says that your product, be it raw material or be it your finished product, should be tested at least twice in a year. And with that objective, we have collaborations with external third-party analytical laboratories. We call them CAP, conformity assessment bodies. Even if the sample has been tested, we send our samples to a third-party laboratory and we get the test done, and that gives us confidence that our product is behaving and working well. So second kind of collaborations we have for our research activities, and these kind of collaborations we have with NIPER and IITs. There's research scholars and professors from these renowned institutes. They help us developing good analytical methods, product portfolios, and validate things or bring new technologies, because they have one of the best technologies with them. So that's how we collaborate. And with this, I say thank you. My part is done, and I hand it over to Vichendra, who will take you through his presentation.
Thank you very much, Vivek. It was very nicely presented. We will take up the questions after Mr. Vijendra also finishes. Yeah, please go ahead, Vijendra.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let me put up my screen.
Not yet. Yeah, we can see it. You can go to the presentation mode.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So thank you, Vivek, and all the presenters. And today, I understand, being a last speaker, I'm trying to engage all the audience, and giving our best is always a little tough, but I'll definitely try to do my best. And Vidya and Vikram and Vivek and I'm Vijendra, all 4 V's from Amway. We are trying to cover the entire product life cycle from formulations, process development, and quality of supplements. And then today I'll be talking about, just a minute, I think. Okay. So I'll be talking about Amway's botanical traceability and sustainability. So before that, let me introduce quickly myself. I'm Vijendra Kumar, looking after Botanical Sciences Division for Amway Global Services India Private Limited. Dolly, just want to check with you, is my header is covered by?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it visible clearly?
No, actually the top line is covered, sir, with this thing, the information of the Zoom.
Okay, how to take it off? Just thinking.
Vijendra, you can drag that down. Okay. Hold and drag it. Yep.
Just a minute. Oh, thank you.
That's okay.
So now if I want to talk about a traceability, so what is traceability and how to define traceability? And before that, who doesn't want traceable products? I'm sure many of us, when we take bottle of supplements in our hand, the first question comes to our mind, what are all the ingredients which are being used in this formula? And specifically, the functional botanical ingredient, where does it come from? And what is the purity, safety, and efficacy of this ingredient? Because these 3 things are centered around the product benefits, right? Let me just define in simple way what is traceability. So traceability is knowing where your products come from and how they are made along every step of their journey. So my slides are not moving. Click. Okay. So now if I already Dr. Vidya had in her formulation presentation, she covered the 9-step process. But still, I also try to want to reiterate the importance of these 9 steps, because here, every step of this 9-step process, we do maintain the traceability by documenting, by initially from the selection of the right seeds until the product reach consumer's hand, because that is where we are defining the traceability. And did you all know one interesting fact about Amway? This traceability effort is not only limited to our Nutralite nutrition products, it also carry over to our beauty brand Artistry. Every product in Artistry skin nutrition line includes Nutralite grown botanicals. So let me talk about a little bit about sustainability, because nowadays sustainability, the end customers and everyone across the globe thinks about sustainability. Anything we do, we always focus on sustainability, right? So then how do we define sustainability? I tried my best to take and bring the simple definition for sustainability. Sustainability is healthy balance between economic growth, environmental care, and social well-being. With that, let me take the liberty to connect Amway's vision of helping people live better, healthier lives because our vision also is based on how we make our planet better, healthier. That is how the sustainability is integrated with our every activity and actions we do at Amway. And again, I want to just say one more interesting fact about Amway is Amway owns 6,000 acres of certified organic farms to grow botanicals which are used in Nutralite products. And sustainable farming practices are being carried out every day at our farms. If I just talk about where and all across the globe these farms are located, I would say we have our farms of these 6,000 acres are spread across US, Brazil, and Mexico. So now, if I talk about, after understanding and defining the traceability and sustainability, what exactly Amway does to ensure this traceability and sustainability of our products, right? So definitely with this simple slide and the given time of 10 minutes, I cannot able to cover everything, but still I'll try my level best to cover a few of the areas. Let me talk about the first point, Amway's philosophy of C2 supplement, because the C2 supplement concept is for many years we have been following at Amway. So here again, if I talk about the 9th step, we control everything from selecting the quality of seeds till the product reaches the consumer hands by documenting and following all the quality activities and quality functions, selection of botanicals, standardizations, and quantifying the markers, and then manufacturing the product until the product reaches the consumer hands, right? And then when it comes to the practice of best of nature and best of science, what exactly it means? By leveraging the advanced science and technology, we try to harvest the best thing from nature very meaningfully by not impacting our environment. Then when it comes to sustainable farming practices, yes, we always ensure and integrated this whole stuff of sustainable farming practices in our farming activities. If I just name few, we always follow the crop rotations by using cover crops and using always green manure, vermicompost, and by not using any chemical fertilizers, and also by not using any pesticides. So there are many things, such good process which we integrated in our agronomy practices in our farms. And finally, when it comes to product design to reduce waste, each and every ingredient we choose while designing a product which will have less impact on environment. And also when it comes to selecting our packaging material, we are very careful how these packaging materials can be biodegradable, and also this can be reused. And I don't want to keep giving the interesting facts. So if I cover one more interesting fact to ensure the kind of sustainable farming practices which we follow on our own Nutralite farms, we wanted to ensure the same similar standards which have been followed on third-party farms where we source some botanical ingredients. For that, we have designed our agricultural standard practices. It is named as Nutracert. If I just elaborate Nutracert, it is like a Nutralite or Nutralite certification program which is exclusive to Amway. So maybe just I want to give a glimpse of how we ensure the traceability and the sustainability. I just have a small video. Let me play it.
Imagine a world where plants have fingerprints, and where a group of scientists have fingerprinted over 1,300 of the world's botanicals to discover their health benefits, and where every seed is given a unique birth certificate to track its life from seed to supplement. Imagine a group of scientists who search the globe for the best farms on every continent, except Antarctica. Imagine a farm where nature is used to help nature, and where natural pest control is the job of falcons, like copper, and where farmers understand their plants so well that they know the precise moment to harvest to optimize their nutrients. Imagine a supplement company that uses every part of every plant, extracting essential phytonutrients for your benefit, and using the rest of the plant to revitalize the soil on its farms. Imagine a team of engineers so obsessed with product excellence that they run more than 500,000 quality checks a year on their supplements. Or a team of packaging engineers who run more than 30,000 tests in extreme conditions to ensure that your supplements will remain pure, safe, and effective from our door to yours. Imagine a life colored with the power of phytonutrients, nurtured every step of the way. Because at Nutrilite, we believe to get truly traceable supplements, you need to go behind the label. These are the real people that bring to life a world you don't have to imagine. This is the real world of Nutrilite traceability.
Thank you for watching our traceability video. So now, as I just mentioned about the Nutracert program, which is exclusive for Amway, yes, Nutracert is our exclusive agricultural certification program to ensure partner farms meet the similar standards which we follow on our Nutrilite farms. But how do we execute it? Even though the standard is ours, which we built upon the kind of experience which we generated on our own farms and build the standard, but we cannot do it on our own. We have to engage the third-party certification partner who will execute our standards on third-party farms by evaluating the farms against the standard compliance. So this is very important for us to build the credibility.
Mr. Vijendra,
Yes,
we are
sir.
running out of time.
Sure, sir, sure. I'll just make it fast. So if I just talk about, there are three pillars on which the Nutracert program has been built. The first one is traceability. Now again, the traceability is where we are tracking back the agricultural farm locations where we are sourcing these botanicals, and we are documenting every step of the process. Similarly, when it comes to social responsibility, this is very important pillar for us, because as we know, in POP in India, they talk more on traceability and ecological sustainability. And in addition to that, in our internal standard, we wanted to highlight the social responsibility. Here, we ensure farm workers' safety and developmental opportunities by giving them all the access, by ensuring that all the access have been given, basic access to all the minimum healthcare facility, by providing the personal protectives and the farm, their safety on the farm side. So these are some of the few things I'm just covering here because of the time. And also we help them, working with the community outreach programs. And when it comes to ecological sustainability, yes, we do take care of farm site environment, which is very basic and critical requirement. And we always ensure that the balanced farm site environment is also very important for the healthy plant of our interested one. And then ecological vital operations for ensuring the biodiversity. So these are all the three major pillars on which our Nutracert program is built upon. And if I talk about how our third-party auditor, when he is gone to farm and evaluates the farm on against our Nutracert standards, he will always assess the farm against the established standard checklist, basis which he'll assign, okay, this farm has got this basic requirement, let me assign the bronze, because bronze is the lower side in the entire 3 levels of certifications, and then silver will be in the middle, and gold will be on the top side. Because if I just say one difference is that bronze will be always 100% traceable, that's the minimum expectations. But silver, yes, along with the 100% traceability, there will be a organic systems and practices being followed, but they may not be certified by third-party certification provider. Like there are a lot of certification bodies in India under RAPIDA, NPOP. So if they don't have any certification, but still they have a minimum documents to prove that they are following organic practices, you can always assign them silver. Gold is the very ultimate and the high level one, which will meet the bronze and silver. So these are the different certification process we follow to evaluate the forms. And then this is the quick recap of whatever I just explained. And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vijendra.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dolly.
Sir, can we take two
Yeah,
questions?
yeah, please go ahead with the questions.
Yeah, so first question is for Mr. Vivek. Vijendra sir, you can stop sharing the screen.
I'm just thinking, oh, sorry, 1 second, I'll do that. Stop sharing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the first question is for Mr. Vivek, sir, that you had mentioned that dietary supplements are normally in the form of tablets, capsules, gummies, etc. Isn't it more interesting to fortify the food items that are consumed normally every day so that it is more acceptable and does not give a feeling that we are taking some medicines?
Yeah, actually, yes, this can be done, but then there's a separate regulation on fortified food, which was published by FSSI. And the main reason for this is that, during one presentation, it was being discussed that when we make our conventional food at home, then there's a possibility of degradation because we do not know how to treat these micronutrients. Per se, there is this one requirement that edible oil should be fortified by vitamin A and D. Now, scientifically, we know that vitamin D at a temperature more than 40 degrees centigrade would start degrading. Similarly, vitamin A is also light sensitive and it will not sustain there. So if I keep fortifying vitamin A and vitamin D in oil, and if I keep frying samosas there, then I cannot ensure that the vitamin A and D will be given to the consumer. Therefore, that can be one option. Fortified food can be one option, but it cannot replace dietary supplement. And that's how the dietary supplement has its own unicorn position there.
Okay.
Dolly,
Yeah.
You can ask one question to Vijendra.
Yeah.
And we can go to panel discussion.
Okay.
Sorry
Okay, sir.
about this, but some of the panel members have to leave. So we have to start the panel discussion immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, Dolly, please.
Yeah. So, Mr. Vijendra, we have a question for you that are Nutrite products in India organic?
Actually, our products are not, are not organic, but we always ensure that the ingredient botanicals which we use in our products are from organic source.
Okay, so we have more questions for you too, sir. But then, looking at the time, we will move ahead to the panel discussion, and the pending questions will be sent to you. Dr. Pai, can we move ahead for the panel discussion?
Yes, please.
Okay, sir. So
I think Dr. Sashikaran is here.
Yeah.
Welcome, Dr. Sashikaran. We are very happy that you are joining us. We are having a lot of excellent presentations. You must have heard some of them. So let us move on to the panel discussion. Yeah, Dolly, please introduce.
So we now move to the panel discussion and would like to invite the moderator and the panelists. Dr. Sashikaran is a former NIN director of ICMR Hyderabad, chairman of the Scientific Advisory Committee of PF India. He has over 120 publications and chapters in 3 books, developed guidelines for probiotic in food, guidelines for GM food safety, guidelines for biosimilar drugs, recommended dietary allowances and dietary guidelines. He is past president Nutrition Society of India, public trustee of ILSI India, member governing body of Nutrition Foundation India, member advisory council on science Coca-Cola India, member scientific advisory committee gut microbiota and probiotic science foundation India. Dr. Subhadra Mandalika is a retired associate professor, Nirmala Niketan College of Home Science, ex officio NSI Mumbai chapter, senior vice president, Association of Sports, Nutrition and Fitness Sciences, academic experience of around 26 years of undergraduate and postgraduate level, has been selected as an ambassador of goodwill by the Rotary International, around 55 publications on various peer-reviewed journals and books, PhD referee for University of Kerala, Saurashtra, Nagpur, Pune, Hyderabad and SNDT Women's University. Mr. Ajay Khanna is the Chief Marketing Officer, MV India Enterprises Private Limited. He has over 24 years of experience in the FMCG and telecom industry. His trajectory with the company includes leading growth of the home care, personal care, agriculture, and insurance categories before taking on the category head role for the company's biggest business category, nutrition and wellness, in 2014. He has been instrumental in driving growth for MV's nutrition brand Nutrilite and consumer durables, in addition to driving effective collaboration with the company's direct sellers and cross-functional teams. Mr. Arjun Dasundi. He is a seasoned research and development professional with more than 20 years of experience in nutrition and pharmaceutical space. At Amway, presently Associate Vice President, Process and Packaging Development Function for Nutrition, Food, Beauty, Personal Care and Home Care Products for emerging market based in Gurgaon. He is Masters in Pharmacy, Medicinal and Pharmaceutical Chemistry, alumnus of Indian Institute of Management, Indore, and hold Excellence in Global Leadership Program. He is Certified Scrum Master, Certified Coach of Blanchard Coaching Essential Model. Mr. Arjun has featured in Forbes India Top 100 Great People Manager in the year 2020. Ms. Zamrud Patel is an HOD Chief Dietitian, Global Hospital, Mumbai. She is a registered dietitian IDA, postgraduation in Dietetic SNDT University, PGDM in Healthcare Management. She is a chapter convener of IDA Mumbai chapter, guide and co-guide for graduate and postgraduate students at SVT and SNDT University, lectures given at various national conferences and seminars. She has got various awards, including Distinction Award for Excellence in Nutrition Practice 2020. She has published many books like a handbook on diets for disease in as first edition, a role of low protein diet in management of different stages of chronic kidney disease and kidney disease nutrition guidelines. Her past position includes consultant and research dietitian, Hinduja Hospital, Lilavati Hospital, etc. Over to you, Dr. Shashikaran. I welcome all the panelists. Let's have a great panel discussion.
Thank you, Dolly, and I do not know how much time do we have. The same 40 minutes.
Let us see. Let us.
Depending upon the amount of time we have, we could go into that many
and
rounds
the interest of the panelists.
Dr. Shashikaran, I was informed that Mr. Ajay Khanna has to leave at around 6. So can we take his questions first?
6 is okay. That's another 30 minutes.
So we can go 40 minutes. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. I think by the time we should be able to conclude. Anyway, I thank Amway as well as PFNDI for organizing this very nice seminar. I was able to hear some of the talks from Amway and extremely impressed at the way the work is done and the quality of the products are ensured. We have now in the panel, as was introduced, Dr. Subhadra and Ms. Zamrud Patel, who are, of course, familiar to me as part of the members of the Nutrition Society of India and the IDA. And we have 2 experts from Amway. It is interesting to note that the 3 speakers' names started with a V, and these 2 panelists' names started with an A. So I don't know how they managed it, but welcome Ajay and Arjun. And now let us start off the questions. And it'll be good if you can be very brief in responding. Let's say around maximum about 3 minutes so that we can cover as many questions during this period. So the first question goes to Dr. Subhadra. Are nutraceuticals foods or drugs? Which nutraceuticals are used in the maintenance of eye health and bone health?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Shashikaran. It's my privilege to share the webinar platform with you. And I also thank Dr. Pai for inviting me to be part of this wonderful webinar. Yes, sir. Actually, nutraceuticals are nothing but extracts from food. So we cannot call them food, but they are extracted from food. And the second part of your question is which nutraceuticals are important
for eye health and bone health? Can you mention? Yeah.
Most of the nutraceuticals, like among the those with nutritional properties like beta carotene, vitamin E, and the phytochemicals including lutein, zeaxanthin, and other. These are predominantly mentioned and researched for eye health. And for bone health, there are many anti-inflammatory nutraceuticals, again, which include both nutritional and non-nutritional components, like omega-3 fatty acid like EPA, DHA for their anti-inflammatory role. Of course, not to forget about vitamin D3 and calcium, both are nutrients, and along with vitamin D3 and calcium to facilitate the utilization of calcium. Again, you have, and vitamin D, we have even vitamin K, very important for bone health. So these are most prominent ones for these two systems of the bodies.
Thank you. So Arjun, what are some common health problems and diseases which could be prevented by nutraceuticals and dietary supplements?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shashikaran and all panelists. I think, this is a very good question actually. And the reason, why, because this is one of the most commonly asked question also, that, what kind of a disease or health conditions the nutraceuticals and or dietary supplement can address. The answer is, that neither nutraceutical or the dietary supplements are intended to be, addressing or meant for the management of disease conditions or any health supplement. So this is one of the things which is very important for the audience here to understand. So then the next question comes that, okay, then if they are not intended for this, then what are their role is? Then why do we need the supplements, right, or dietary supplements? So there are multiple roles. It actually, these nutraceuticals or the dietary supplements or health supplements, and many times these terms are like, synonymously or different ways used into a different market and regulations. I mean, yes, FSI does has their own definitions of it. But the point is that, their role is one is certainly to meet the gap into a daily diet, because individuals have a very different varied diets. People are vegetarians, few are non-vegetarians, some of them are vegans, and maybe due to their geographical or a predominant diet, or a reason in which there is a common diet available, there would be certainly a few gaps for the other nutrient, important micro and macronutrients, which people will be lacking. So one of the role of this supplementation is to meet that gap. The second role of this supplementation is that, if there are some specific deficiencies individual have. So suppose if one is vitamin D deficient because of any reason, I mean, maybe it could be a reason of the lifestyle that, nowadays we all are in-housed and, not getting an exposure of sunlight as much as we used to get it before. Then this kind of supplementation help in reaching that, or filling up that gap of the deficiency, and reaching that vitamin D level back to the normal level. The third role which this nutraceuticals and the health supplement play is also into a partnering on some of the medical the conditions in which there is a treatment plan going on. And what I mean by that is that, there are regulations, scheduled and the regulations around in the FSI also, which we talk about FSDU and FSMP. So which is basically what is this, food for special dietary uses and food for medical purposes, right? Special medical purpose. So what it means that if somebody is into some diet plan or some specific, the disease through which, they are into a condition where these nutrients cannot be either absorbed or excreted through a system faster because of their medical conditions, then certain kind of the dietary supplements and which can fall under these regulations can be designed, developed, and provided to them as a supplementation to their treatment plan. And also in sometimes because of some physiological conditions, specifically, people have some deficiencies like, for B12, the absorption is poor into an individual who has a low gastric acidity, which means that their absorption would be poor from a normal diet which they use. So which means that we need to then supplement. So, to cut the long answer short, it is very important to understand and address, that, this supplement should not be considered as to be in prevention or cure of the disease, which is, one of the most common misunderstanding people have it. But while they still have a very important role for, the individuals, meeting the gaps, physiological needs, medical conditions, or in some conditions, somebody have some specific health goal. So suppose if I want to achieve or increase my muscle mass, is one of my health goals, then I need a specific formulations which have a high protein into it, so that can meet my the health goal through whatever the activities which I follow in my routine. So I mean, I hope, I mean, this was helpful.
Yeah.
Been able to.
Thank you. That was a very good explanation you have given. And I agree with you that if you were to call any particular product or ingredient to prevent, treat, or cure or mitigate a disease, then it's a pharmaceutical, and it doesn't come under either food or a nutraceutical. Essentially, these are meant to support or enhance the body's basic physiological and metabolical processes to help lead a healthy life. So that is essentially what these supplements are meant for. And that's a good explanation. Let me also tell the panelists and others here that we still have almost 375 people watching this. And so therefore, don't think at the end of the program and there may be hardly anybody, but it doesn't seem to be so. The next question goes to Ms. Amrut Patel. What are some examples of nutraceuticals and therapeutic use they offer? Nutraceuticals and their therapeutic advantages. Amrut, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be with you. So when you're talking of nutraceuticals, the previous speaker did mention one or two examples. Like when patients come to us, we look at what are their requirements. So definitely a balanced diet is offered to them by us, but what we need for their specific needs. For example, if somebody comes for a weight loss management to us, so basically we have to looking at the nutraceutical like a protein powder, which will suit their requirements, the good quality protein that the body would need. So we normally look at the disease condition that they have, and based on that we try to give them the nutraceutical. Another example is for giving of fiber, dietary fiber for weight loss, even for people who have GI disturbances like diarrhea or constipation. So different type of nutraceuticals we combine for different disease status. So that is as per the requirement of the patient, we try to focus on the nutraceutical and we try to give them that would be needed by them.
Yeah, I think supplements, as I mentioned earlier, not only support the physiological metabolic processes, and also they support specific health needs of people. Okay, that there are, let us say there is a diabetic or a person with a chronic kidney disease. They have specific dietary requirements, which may not necessarily be the natural normal physiology, but an altered physiology. And these supplements can also be used to support. So supplements also support healthcare, and that is something we should all remember, even though they don't treat. Now, Dr. Ajay, sorry, I should have asked you the question first because you said you are going to leave early. And what role? So what I'll do, I'll ask two questions for you, one after the other. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
What roles?
I'll be there till end, Dr. Sasikaran. Don't worry about that.
Thank you, sir. So what role supplementation play in our day-to-day life, or what are the reasons to supplement? And isn't our diet fully balanced? Do we need supplements at all? This is a question which most people often ask. Yes, sir.
No, thank you for the question, and I think my colleague Arjun answered quite a lot of this while he was kind of answering the question. And I think the popular belief is that मेरा घर का खाना काफी है, and that's what I think we said. Home cooked food is suffice, but if you really look into our diets, and I look at my children's diet, which is even worse than what we take, it's very difficult to feed that generation. I don't know if you have similar challenges, but I do really kind of face those challenges. So typically, what we see, the Indian diet is very heavily cooked, full of refined carbohydrates, there's sugar, there's not as much vitamins and antioxidants because they're all kind of temperature sensitive. We like to boil, we like to kind of do really heat our food. So it can leave you deficient in many key nutrients, which over a period of time, when it becomes your body becomes deficient, it leads to kind of chronic diseases. But that too late by the time you realize that, because it's not one day process or a week's process or a month's process. It's almost, I would say, good 15, 20, 30 years when you could be having a well-balanced diet. it would be great if we could have a very well balanced diet. And in Nutrilite, we have a concept of color your diet, which means color your plate. So if you have all the colors on your plate, it actually shows that you're getting a lot of the varied vitamins, minerals you're getting, and the portion of fruit and vegetable you're having is enough. Unfortunately, if you really look at a recent peer-reviewed 2020 study, it has shown that Indians' diets across states and income groups are unhealthy. Indians also consume excess amounts of cereals and not enough proteins, fruits, and vegetables. In fact, we had done our own study where we realized that we don't have that 5 portions of fruits and vegetables which we should be having. Now, all this actually kind of leads to deficiencies, right? So how do you kind of really supplement that? We have a concept of calling eat hard or eat smart. So if really I want to take all the nutrition, and if I also kind of take it from food, and even protein, you take an example, if I was to take the protein which I require, if I have a vegetarian diet, then really it would be very difficult to kind of have that kind of food. And given our diets and the junk which we have, it's almost next to impossible. So there, I think supplements become a very important role, and they are foundational supplements like protein, there are multivitamins and minerals, there's omega, which your body is not producing. So these are not what your body is producing. You need to kind of do that. You can get it from food, but unfortunately, neither of us, most of us are not getting it from a diet. One, because you're not having the adequate quantities of food, you're not having the right food. Also, the chemicals and the pesticides used in farming, the depleted soils, the refinement, the additives is creating a deep imbalance in our food supply chain itself. So really, I think supplementation is critical, and I really encourage all the youngsters who I meet, though you think when you are young and you are healthy, you think you'll never get old and you'll never have this thing. So I think that feeling of that. So I just tell them that I started 23 years back when I was still young, and I got introduced to Amway and I got used to Nutrilite. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not aware of that, and they end up, by the time they grow up, with a lot of deficiencies which could have been avoided had they taken the right supplements to complement the diets which they're having.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, as nutritionists, to Subhadra and others will agree that we always say that have a balanced diet, and that's the best source of all the nutrients. So when do you need to take supplements is if there's any reason to believe that you're not eating the right kind of food, and there could be a gap in your nutrition, and you cannot fill it up by your normal eating process. That is when we probably need to supplement a little bit. So that's a good one. I'll ask the next question also to you, Dr. Raja, is what is your view on the daily requirement of protein? Who are the target population who should consume more proteins?
So actually, I sit with my niece, and my niece is visiting me from Pondicherry, and she kind of travels. So, and she's kind of obviously, and that's where I see the awareness around protein, which has kind of gone up. Unfortunately, earlier on, we didn't see as much awareness around protein. And protein is, we know, the building block for your body. It's absolutely critical and essential. The recommended dietary allowance of protein for an average Indian is anything between 0.8 to 1 gram per kg body weight. However, the average intake is probably around 0.6 gram per body weight. And that also could be because we have a lot of predominantly vegetarian diets which is there. In fact, a 2017 survey shows that 73% of Indians are deficient in protein, while above 90% are unaware of the daily requirements of protein. So it's a big, I think, awareness. There are a lot of brands which are trying to do that. And I'm happy to see that the younger generations kind of really caught that up. And there's a long way to kind of go there. Obviously, if you're kind of exercising and you're doing sports and you're there, so obviously your requirement goes up from 1 gram to 1.2 grams. So for me, I think it's absolutely critical, and that's something which all of us need to be aware of and be very conscious of, because that's the building block of your body. So surely we should kind of focus on a daily, and it's like a bank account. If you don't deposit enough on a particular day. So let's say you're 60 kgs and you need 60 grams. It's not that I will have 80 grams tomorrow, let me have 40 grams today, and I'll have 80, so I'll cover 120. It has to be really a daily intake and out. So I think that awareness, if it is brought in, it will really help everybody lead a much fitter and a healthier life, and the longevity of life and a much healthier and happier life.
Yeah. In fact, protein is now becoming more popular, not only for the purpose of meeting your nutrient requirement, but protein is the only macronutrient which will give you satiety. Okay, it's one of the ways of trying to cut down on your carb intake is by increasing your protein intake so that you feel full and then you don't crave for more of this. And people should also be familiar with that all proteins are not the same. Protein is not something which is when a quantity to quantity between two types of protein, they will not be the same. There's also an issue of quality, the issue of digestibility, the issue of bioavailability. So depending upon what our requirements are and how much we need, the kind of proteins also have to be varied between the people's needs. Thank you, Ajay sir. Now back to Subhadra. What are the active ingredients in foods? And does the concentration of active ingredient in foods have an effect on the benefit which are offered by the nutraceutical?
Yeah, sir, if you permit me, I just would like to add one point to the previous answer. May I?
Please. Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, as you rightly said, definitely there are a lot of things that need to be kept in mind before suggesting protein supplements to the general population. And along with all the points that you have shared, I also say that the majority of the population are being identified with several non-communicable diseases, either in the beginning, it's going to occur, or they have very strong family history. So proper checkup is very important for renal and hepatic functions before anybody supplements more protein in the diet. And then another point which I want to add is the population which may be requiring protein supplements would be the sports persons, the athletic population, because whose protein requirements for some of the categories are very high. And they find it difficult to meet these requirements on a daily basis, which is almost like mandatory. So that is where I think the protein supplements are going to play a role. And suppose in some therapeutic conditions where they cannot consume so much of food to meet their protein requirements, and these supplements, because they are concentrated sources of protein and that too good quality protein, so it may be of great help. I think Zamrud will agree with me in that point.
Yeah, absolutely right. We see a lot of this happening. People just start loading sometime. The benefits are there, but you need to understand what would be the side effects, if any. So you need to evaluate people very thoroughly well before putting or using any supplementation.
Yes, thank you so much. Sir, coming to the question, the various active ingredients or bioactive compounds, which include phytochemicals, once again, and also the nutrients, like you have polyphenols, carotenoids, vitamins, fatty acids, peptides, etc. So many which can be isolated from foods as well as non-food sources, like several varieties of plant foods, etc., and whole grains. So it can be isolated. They offer multiple benefits, and majority of them actually are antioxidants, as I have already mentioned in my previous interaction with you. So majority of them are antioxidants. So they offer benefits in almost each and every clinical condition, because oxidative stress is something that increases in majority of the diseases. And then some of them do have some specific benefits, like, for example, the conjugated linoleic acid in weight reduction. And then you have several, then even for weight reduction, the epigallocatechin from green tea. There are some of these active ingredients, probably if they are consumed in the food form, because as nutritionists, as you said, we ultimately go to food-based approach. So if they are consumed in a food form, then there will be more than one active ingredients in them. So these will be very useful, and they will get a synergistic benefit at a time. Okay, like if we are extracting, like, saponins, for example, in beta gourd, and lectin. Both of them are very, very useful for control of diabetes. But if you are isolating saponins or lectins from that and consuming it, probably you will not be getting the benefit of other phytochemicals like charantin, polypeptide P, etc. So if the bitter gourd is consumed as it is, like in the form of juice or any other form on a regular basis, that is also proved scientifically to be very beneficial. So like that, we have so many wonder foods, like whose therapeutic benefits are extensively researched. So with all the several anti-active ingredients present in them, these foods are going to be very useful to the body. So they are useful in multiple diseases.
Yeah. Thank you, Subhadra, for the explanation you've given. And now, Arjun, can one add or provide more than one RDA of a vitamin or mineral? If yes, then the question is, why do you need that? If no, then the question is, why not?
Yeah, I think very good question again, sir. So, so I mean, for a larger audience, maybe I just start with that. Okay, what is that RDA is, and why, how it has been defined actually. So RDA is actually is an acronym, which is basically recommended daily allowance, and it is defined for minerals and vitamins by ICMR, and is incorporated into an FSI under the schedule. Now, how it has been defined is that, and I think we were talking about most of these discussions are interconnected. That we are talking about these formulations or these products are dietary supplement, nutraceuticals, or health supplements.
Arjun, can you be a little louder? They're not able to hear. Yeah, go closer to the system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it better now? Okay. So what I was saying that as we were talking about different topics, now they are all interlinked. And as we were talking that that why this health supplement, nutraceuticals, and this and the dietary supplements are designed and their roles. So they are, and we were talking about that they are there to meet the nutritional gaps, right? And most of us have talked about that, right? So when we are talking about nutritional gaps, there are the studies and the research which has been available, and through which these levels are defined in different markets at a different level, right? So in India, it has been defined by the ICMR and incorporated into the FSI under a schedule, which means that that this much of the vitamins and minerals every individual needs. Like say example, take an example of vitamin C. So it is defined now. It was 40 and now it is increased to a 60 in a new regulation. So these are also a very dynamic range which has been defined. Now, can we use more than one? So yes, there are some regulations, some schedule under which these are defined that you can go beyond it. But if the product is for under a health supplement category, under dietary supplements, it has to comply with the RDA. But if the product is designed for food for special, as I mentioned before, right? Food for especially dietary need, need, or food for a special medical purpose, then these levels are actually been defined at much higher levels. So I took an example of vitamin C. So if I even use the same example under FSDU, it is defined to can go up to a 400 mg, while under the RDA it is only, and under the health supplement dietary supplement it is only for the 40 mg, or I mean now, and 60 mg as the new RDA 2020 has been controlled. So yes, you can go beyond RDA, but depends what kind of formulation, what physical need you are targeting, and you're designing your formulation for, and your target population is what. And if it is for a general populations, for a supplementation, normal supplementation purpose, then it has to be restricted within RDA.
Yeah, so that's a good explanation. In fact, we need not be afraid of RDA as a limit beyond which something is going to go wrong, because there's something called a tolerable upper limit of nutrients, which is many times higher than the RDA. And one can comfortably take even up to tolerable upper limit on a daily basis if required, without causing any harm. So we always have to weigh the benefit versus the risk. Now, if the benefits are going to be so much to the consumer and the risks are very minimal, it is still worth, doing it. I'm sure maybe Sudarshan might have explained earlier. So it's essentially a risk-benefit kind of a requirement as far as nutrients are concerned. Thank you. So that's a good explanation.
Yeah. Just to addition to it, as you rightly mentioned, that there are upper tolerable limits, but many times as a formulator or as a market, we are being actually regulated by the regulations, which is right, and that's where the some of these opportunities within the regulations are also available. That if we cannot even, you rightly mentioned that, yeah, of course, most of this, like that, I was looking at the question and answers while the other speakers were talking, and one of the question came in that, while this is like for vitamin D, the RD is only 1000 IU, but in medicines it goes up to 60,000 IU. So how are this is kind of, and suddenly it's like, that when it fall into a medicine or some disease conditions or which somebody is trying to address some specific therapeutic benefit, then yeah, suddenly it will go up to that level and it is fine in the drug. But when it's need to fall under the the either health supplement or dietary supplements, or then it has to comply to an RDA, and if it has to go beyond, then it has to go to a different physiological need or food for medical purpose. So I mean, we can use that regulations to design our formulations. But as you rightly mentioned, yes, upper tolerable limits of most of these vitamins are way high. I mean, vitamin C is like soluble vitamins. It extracts from the body very easily. I mean, we can take as much as orange. I mean, amla contain more vitamin C than what is under the RDA. So, which means, yeah.
Yes. So anyway, of course, the whole thing is whether it's a supervised administration of the vitamin or an unsupervised administration. Whenever it is unsupervised, then we'll have to limit it to a particular level so that even if the consumer doesn't go back to the nutritionist or the physician, he can keep taking it without having any harm. So in medicine, we have one rule. It says that do no harm. You need not do good, but do no harm. And I think nutrition also, we have the same principle. We don't intend doing harm. Okay. Now coming to Ms. Patel, list some examples of phytochemicals with their sources and their therapeutic advantages.
Sir, phytochemicals basically from the plant sterols, we have from the soya, from the corn. Basically, those help. Definitely, we know the roles that they play in certain type of cancers. They are very good, and definitely it helps our patients. So in my practice, basically, I don't see that much amount of patients with this type of diseases. I am more focused with chronic kidney disease. But yes, phytochemicals are very important for our patients, all type of patients. And the phytochemicals, phenols that we are looking at, which contribute from the pulses, the corn, which will help our patients, are very important, sir.
Especially now that you raised the issue of chronic kidney disease, there are some situations where nutrients can be toxic.
Yes,
especially when, and we should remember that, as a corollary to what Arjun was talking is that unsupervised can sometimes be even life-threatening.
Yes,
so
sir.
For example, any foods containing a lot of phosphates.
Phosphorus.
Something as simple as some of our beverages.
Yes, sir.
Some of our beverages have so much of phosphate, which is okay for most of us. But if you have a chronic kidney disease, it could be life-threatening.
Yes, sir.
So we also need to, understand some of these issues when we are as a company. I know Amway has got a great reputation, and you have you look at all these, and you have the appropriate, directions on your label, etc. Who can use, how much to use, and so on. So that's another important aspect. Thank you.
Yes.
So we finished 2 rounds of questions. We go to the third one again with Ajay.
Dr. Sashikaran.
Sir.
I think this round will have to be a little
faster.
More, faster and compact, because we have 2 more things to come after this. We have to announce the results of the. So if we can have a very quick round.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
So this is going to be a rapid fire round. Okay. So what are the innovation needed in dietary supplement industry, Ajay?
Okay, so innovation is a way of life. They say the only thing constant in life is change. So, and that's what we're trying to do. There are people who are looking at patches. There are people who are looking at gummies. There are people looking at bars. You're looking at unique ways of actually getting the supplements, because we know tablets and pills are kind of perceived more like medicinal, though they are not. They're still kind of continue to be in the food space. But yeah, I think for the younger generation to be appealing, I think gadgets, patches, gummies, bars. So one is the formats through which you can kind of serve your supplementation. There's also the entire thing of assessments and the appliances, which can kind of really help you take the supplements. So there's a lot of research which is happening in that area. It can also be in the form of new botanicals, which are novel, which have more potent functions or acting as a source of nutrients. And there are enough examples there. In the interest of time, I'll not go there. We have our own acerola, which kind of we know is the most powerful and the richest source of vitamin C from nature, highly potential. And how do we kind of get that to people who are kind of really vitamin C deficient? So yeah, those are some of the innovations which the industry is doing.
Thank you, Ajay. And next question goes to Dr. Subhadra. We keep hearing every other product claiming that it is rich in antioxidants. What's the myth of these antioxidants? Do we really need that much antioxidant? Doesn't our body itself have a built-in antioxidant mechanism? And how much of this actually makes sense?
Yes, sir. We definitely have a built-in antioxidant system, lot of antioxidant enzymes the body can produce if we maintain good protein nutritional status and otherwise all balanced nutrition. And of course, there are nutritional antioxidants, but research hasn't proved any additional benefit with antioxidant supplementation for those whose nutrition status is optimum. Okay, for deficient people also, there are no longitudinal studies with regard to the effects of these antioxidant, but I came across some information on the resulting toxicity from some of these antioxidants like alpha tocopherol, vitamin A, etc., especially in cancer patients. So because usually the attention goes on supplements when a person suffers from clinical condition. So there is a lot of oxidative stress that people do experience, but some of them act as pro-oxidants beyond a particular concentration. That is why one has to be very cautious of whether they really need antioxidants, because there are plenty of antioxidants in foods. So the moment you follow the recommendation of fruit and vegetable consumption and whole grain consumption, our antioxidant requirements are absolutely met.
Thank you very much, Dr. Subhadra. Now this question to Arjun. See, I'm just hearing the presentation about traceability and all that, is extremely important. Now, is it necessary that when we prepare a product with a herbal supplement, that we should do the bioequivalence and bioavailability, even though people may say that this is being used for centuries, etc. What is used for centuries ago and what you're putting in your product, can they be one and the same? Don't we have to have the data?
Yeah, I think, thank you, Dr. Shashikaran. And I think, it's a rapid fire round, but it's the most interesting question. Being a pharmacist, I started my career with the research in the drug formulations. And this terminology, bioequivalence and bioavailability was every day's, discussions. And now we are seeing these terminologies are being most oftenly talked into nutraceuticals or Ayush or Ayurvedic formulations, especially herbal. So I'll just take a little bit of a time for a larger audience, because I see there are 350 still the candidates here and wanted to hear about it. So let's understand that when we talk about bioavailability, what that means. So bioavailability is basically is a subject or the topic under the pharmacokinetics in the pharmacology. What it means is that what it says that the extent and the rate of absorption, or the extent at the rate at which it gets into a systematic circulation. And when we talk systematic circulation, it's basically a blood concentration. And why it is not only an extent but also a rate, because if it's say some active ingredients get absorbed into a body, say 100% to 100% extent, but if the rate of absorption is not appropriate, then what will happen? The body also have an inbuilt system to excrete them out, right? So once it gets distributed into a blood circulations, the liver will start metabolizing it, the kidney will start excreting it from the system, right? So the rate at which it gets absorbed is also equally important as the extent it gets absorbed. Now that is basically bioavailability. Now when we come to a bioequivalence, again it's very, this term again, is basically a very drug term because of the innovator versus generic kind of formulation, right? And that's what we are saying that, okay, the age-old Ayush or Ayurvedic formulation should be done, and now equivalency with this or not. Now what happened there, the bioequivalence is basically, the innovator has done, say, for example, some drug, and they have proved some therapeutic efficacy of it through a bioavailability of the drug into a system. And of course, when we talk about bioavailability, of course, there is mean and T max, which is like, time it takes, minimum concentration, which is the effective concentration, and the maximum concentration, effective concentration in the body, into a circulation. Now, the generic formulation is suppose is a very proprietary different formula, could be a different formula, but if the generic or the other formula can be proven that it also absorbed to a certain same extent and at the same rate into a systematic circulation, these two formulations are called bioequivalence. And basically these are in vivo, basically, it's not an in vitro. So now when it is the bioequivalence, it is very safely can be said that, okay, the formula X, which is bioequivalence to formula Y, both of them provide the same therapeutic efficacy. While they may not need to be the another formula may not need to be studied to that extent in terms of therapeutic efficacy. Now coming back to this question that in the herbal formulations, how much is relevant? The first thing is that, we need to find, do we have a database of bioavailability of existing with which we want to do a bioequivalence of a new formula? Because for making something a bioequivalence, has to have some bioavailability data of a reference formulations, right? So we need to first look into that. The second is that, do we also have a bioavailability data of the ancient or the herbal formulations which we already have existing, and we will try to match with that the new formulation. So answer would be maybe yes and no. I mean, for many of them we may not have that data because there may not be so much of an research and the in vivo studies done on that formulation. Do we need to do it now? I think I would say that certainly bioavailability become a most important or one of the most important factor which we can consider now, because most of this, the botanicals or nutraceuticals or herbal formulation which we are talking about, they are lipophilic in nature. Like, we were talking about gingerol or some other active ingredients or curcumin or curcuminoids which we talk about. So they are very poorly soluble, and their bioavailability can be challenged. That whether when we are administrating or we are making a formulation, whether they are getting absorbed into a system as much as we want them or not. So for that, certainly we can do a lot of these different formulations and changes in the formulation processes to make them more bioavailable, right? And of course, as I said, that bioequivalence is, in vivo.
Actually, sorry to interrupt you, Arjunji. I think I too wanted to add to that point, and I think Dr. Pai is already appearing on the video, which means we are running out of time.
Yeah.
So, in fact,
we will have a separate session with Arjun so that we will have a very elaborate discussion on this. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Now, one last question for the end of this session is to Zamrud. How aware are your patients regarding nutraceutical? Actually, I need not ask you this question because now everybody comes after seeing Google only, they come to us. They first Google the whole information, they'll come to us and then they'll start telling, no, but this is not what is mentioned in the Google. So anyway, you tell me your experience very briefly.
Sir, very honestly, yes, you're absolutely right. Earlier, we had to prescribe these nutraceuticals, but people today come with a list to us that, okay, what we can incorporate in our day-to-day life patterns. So you are absolutely right. Today, the awareness is very good compared to what we used to see earlier. And in a way, it's good for us because whatever are the deficiencies, they can be met and we can help our patients better.
Thank you. Thank you all the participants and panelists. I think each one of you has a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure our listeners have benefited. Unfortunately, we don't have sufficient time. Thank you, and I enjoyed personally moderating this, and I learned quite a bit from all of you. Thank you, Dr. Pai, and thank you, Amway.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sachikaran, and all the panelists. Excellent discussion. Dolly?
Yes, sir.
Carry on.